Hey, Prime, I got a question.
Okay.
We both into the fighting games. Have you seen like the stuff that's going on in Japan about the chick that's like kind of getting canceled? Like she had her sponsors like ripped away from her just by saying like short men don't deserve human rights. Do you think? What? What?
What?
Do you think? Do you think she should be canceled? Because I think she meant it as a joke because she
It
was getting
sounds
hit
like
on.
it. That sounds. Look,
Oh,
you got to give me an
kind of
article.
a risky joke.
I have
Yeah.
not have heard of this, but you got to give me an article because this sounds like a
Oh
lot of
god.
fun.
Okay, I gotta find it.
So I think it came from Kotaku, where a person, like the Tekken player, was getting hit on, and she rejected him by saying, like, pretty much like you're too short for me or something, and I don't think you deserve human rights. Her chat basically like did not agree strongly. I think that's the best way to put it. And it later came out that she said a lot more crazy shit, even worse than that. And yeah, the company dropped her. So I think it's a bit much to take in.
Well, it's kind of a risky take to have. So,
So I'm gonna drop the article from in the chat on the.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'll have to look into that. I don't know. Okay. So thanks all for being here. Thank you, Yamato. Thank you, Desperado, and Desperado. Thank you for the support previously. It's big help. Just thank you for the kindness. Ko Dave is here. He's a mystery man right now. Though he has a pretty awesome profile picture. That's pretty cool, actually. I like that a lot. Nice logo. Then we have Omni DPS. Hello, Omni. Thank you for stopping by. We have Rainbase. Oh, hi, Rainbase or Ferdy. Is that a Dark Souls?
yeah, it is.
Okay.
I'm very happy for Elden Ring right now.
Okay, cool. Would you say? Do you say you're waiting for Elden Ring?
I'm very much waiting for Elden Ring.
I am so waiting for Elden Ring. I'm like desperate for content. You know, I spent today like watching because I haven't played Dark Souls or Demon Souls. I just like looking through Dark Souls and Demon Souls lore because I figured a lot of that stuff is going to be imported into Elden Ring, right? So I'm just like looking for anything to like sate my hunger because I want this game now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Man, I can't wait. Oh, next Friday.
I can't fucking wait. I can't fucking wait.
Well, you're gonna have to.
I will.
Well,
so
well, yeah.
we have Dustin the fucking downer. Thank you,
Sorry.
man.
At least it's realistic, though,
For
right?
being here, right? Then we also have Turk, who was so kind to join us at the last panel. Really appreciate him, right? Once again, in camouflage, right? So we can't see him. But Turk, thank you for being so kind, for coming through, right? Sharing more of your time. Turk's an interesting guy. Boji, thank you for the 5 hot tier 1 gifts up to the channel. No, she's even more interesting because she gave me money. Boji, thank you for the 5 subs. It means a ton. Friend, thank you so much, right? You at 448 subs total to the channel. Thank you for the endless support. Boji, where are you at right now in the standings, right? You're at you're tied for second with Diamond Hands Niner Socks. Thank you so much, Boji. Thank you. That's one hell of a way to make an entrance, though. Much appreciated. Why am I so happy? Because Elden Ring is coming. That's why I'm so happy. That's literally it, right? And then I'll be, and as soon as it comes out, I'll be immediately fucking depressed because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm fucking suck at video games. I'm getting my ass beat.
Dude, I was practicing in Bloodborne, bro. The other day, and I was just getting my ass handed to me.
Do they have difficulty levels on this one?
No,
Nope.
okay. I don't do that from software. No.
Yeah. They implicitly have some like according to interviews, like the side bosses tend to be the difficult ones, and the main bosses tend to be the easier ones. So
okay.
Yeah, definitely.
they told us that they really
Most
leaned
games,
into the
right?
whole you can just walk away from stuff because it's open world now. So they like tried to balance it like that.
Secret bosses are always the harder ones. But okay, one quick story is from Bloodborne, right? I had been going, like I was using a strategy guide to make my way through, right? and it like dropped me off at this boss, and it was Dark Beast Pearl, if you know what I'm talking about. It's a big thunder wolf thick looking thing, right?
The electrocution bullshit, right?
That one.
Yeah.
I just got slamming my head against. I fought that thing fucking dozens of times. I had to put the game down for a year, walk away, come back, right, and then play it again, and finally I beat it. And after I beat it, oh, it's an optional boss. Okay, well,
it always makes you come back. It always makes you come back.
Yeah, but anyway, I would have wanted to beat it any which way, but still, I didn't know it was optional. So okay, let's go to Wick. Wick, our last but absolutely not least guest here. But we can. There's more people. There's more slots open. So if you want to be in here, we'd love to have you. But Wick, how are you doing?
I'm just glad that my #1 fan is here supporting your channel. With those gift subs there. Boji's always excited to see me. I'm always happy to have her, So.
Boji says that she hates you.
Yeah, I read that.
Okay.
I can read.
No,
and it's okay.
I'm doing as she says because she was so kind as to give 5 subs. So yes, but thank you. Okay,
this is me making you money. This is me giving you content.
This is indeed. Okay, so we were talking about during the last panel. We were talking about the video game industry. We were talking about the strain, how it, the mental health impacts it has on its developers and its customers. So a lot of people have a lot of things to say about this, right? So I want to give you guys space, right? So, what do you think?
Well, I have an entry prompt. In the last discussion, I think we had a lot of talk about video games getting worse due to management decisions, and we also had a lot of talk about video games tending to burn out their talent working for them. And while I think both of these are like very valid issues, and I hate both of them happening, I think it's not very fair to like put them together just because they happen to happen at the same time. So,
explain.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, could you explain that?
Well, I think there is many examples of studios being like very shit places to work and doing a lot of crunch and overtime, but producing great games we all love. For example, FromSoft being one of them, being a developer very famous for being a shit place to work at, but well, the games are pretty good.
You should not buy Elden Ring.
Yeah, I already bought it, so
yeah, too late.
So you're
just
but on the other side,
you're keeping the train going.
Of course.
No. I mean, that's not.
We have to differentiate.
Wait. That's not always the case, because then you have issues like Capcom producing, like what, Resident Evil 6, like during the early days, keeping people late, like overnight with no extra pay and shit, and the game comes out shit. You can't say that it reduces results when we have stuff like that coming out. Or think about
crunch is okay on a good game.
World of Warcraft. Yeah.
But crunch is okay on a good game.
I'd argue a different point. I'd argue that crunch is probably some part, like to a certain extent, is part of any creative industry that like tries to deliver a product. You probably can't do that without some kind of crunch, because it's like very hard to plan and it's very hard to like gauge how much time you need. So there's always some level of crunch, but you should probably work on like better dealing with the crunch. And we should not equate crunch as like creating bad video games. But I think both of those are very different issues.
I think the root of the problem is production management. So I think the biggest examples we can see is Anthem and Final Fantasy 14. So Anthem had like very bad direction in the game, and like they wanted to do like all these different things, but they just couldn't figure out how to work things. So it's a production issue. That's why the game came out really, really bad, even though people were working really, really long hours and really, really hard. And then on the flip side, we see Final Fantasy 14. It was a horrible game at 1.0, but it through the amazing production skills of Yoshi P and his direction, it became like this amazing MMO that we have today. So I think the root of the issue isn't that crunch is bad. Crunch is always going to be a part of the development cycle. It's just how you deal with it and how effectively you can produce for games.
But there was moments, right, when Yoshi P did delay the games. Because he had to delay the newest expansion for Endwalker.
Yeah.
for like maybe a week or 2 weeks, and he got so much. People were so upset with him. He got death threats and stuff like that, especially for like updates to classes. He got another set of death threats. I think the problem with people with mental health is that like sometimes the fans or like us in general, like as fans, we overreact when we should just wait and listen. That can play another part in someone's mental health.
I think that comes down to the culture of today, where we get information so quickly and so many small bites of it that everyone's just like all reacting. We all know the culture of Twitter in itself, and that's like the biggest example of that. As to the point of Yoshi P getting death threats, I think the overwhelming community understood like what he was going with, because he's very clear and concise with his communication with everyone. The death threats did happen, but it was very, very, very small minority of the community. Not saying it didn't happen, but it wasn't like most people.
But is he a C level, or is he just the executive producer?
He's the producer. He's also on the board, which is why he has like a lot of sway. And he's the one. He pretty much saved Square Enix from bankruptcy. That's why he's got like so much power and in the company.
So this is where I'm torn, right? Because I agree that crunch is a necessity to product development. It is just inherent with trying to get products out the door. But when this person decides to delay a product in order to make it good, we're okay with that. But then when we decide to delay Cyberpunk or decide to delay 2042, and there's still crunch involved with it, and the product's bad, we say crunch is bad now. So I'm like, crunch is good or crunch is bad?
I think it's more to do with the prior history of those companies. So when we see Ubisoft, I think, and EA, and CD Projekt Red with the whole Cyberpunk fiasco, what the products that they released on time really drained the social capital within the community, because it was like very, very buggy, very, very like bad. So when they say delay, they don't expect a good product anyway. They probably just expect that they bring it to a level that's playable. Whereas for Final Fantasy, like I said, Yoshi P brought the game from like really, really bad to like really good. Like I said, saved the company. So when he did the delay, I think everyone's more accepting of it and more receptive to the crunch, because they know he's going to give a good product. Like the last 4 expansions of the game was really good, so they're just riding on that.
So it's not necessarily the crunch that's the problem; it's the company that's doing the crunching.
Yeah, crunch is always going to happen.
Hold on, let's go to. Okay. All right, since you specifically disagree, go to Wick and then Destin.
Okay, so I understand that you can use crunch and you still put a good product. I understand that some amount of workload or crunch, as we call it, might be necessary. But I would like to push back against this notion that if it produces a good game, we're okay with it. I'm not okay with it. Excessive crunch, I'm not okay with it. Even if it produces a masterpiece, I'm not willing to excuse those companies from using terrible practices that hurt their workforce, even if I like the product. I think there needs to be a level of accountability there. I don't know what that is. I don't have an answer for you here. But I do want to push back against that concept. Just that's all I want to do.
I want to perk up, and I just want to say, like, mechanistically, I don't see how crunch would be the reason why a game is good in the first place, right? Like, I would imagine that the less overworked the employees are, the coders are, the artists, etc., right? The more generally higher quality work they'll be able to put out. So I suspect that as long as there's a due date, as long as there's a deadline, some form of crunch is going to happen. But that that doesn't mean that that's not like refuting the need to reduce it and minimize it as much as possible.
It kind of seems to me, at least, like I think Project Red and Cyberpunk is actually a pretty good example. They had a lot of faith, and like hope and support from a consumer base as far as as Cyberpunk was happening, and you can kind of see them just piss it away month by month as they're yanking the chain by changing that due date. And I think what we talk about and what we have to deal with as consumers is kind of that problem, like, okay, it's going to be on this date, and then some people that work in different jobs request those days off, and then all of a sudden that date does change and it does get pushed farther and farther down. So you have to take that in comparison, because not only is that CD Projekt Red listening to their workers at that same time, trying to say okay, we fucked up our time scale, we shouldn't have been doing our marketing on this to specifically hit this date, we really kind of shit the bed on this one, we're going to make it this date. And the same thing happens, and eventually they ended up releasing a pretty poor product.
Does anyone agree with this? Because I definitely don't. The problem with CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk wasn't that they were pushing it back, right? It should have been pushed back longer, clearly, right?
Yeah, I don't.
The fact that some people they took off of work and they're pissed about what? So, and plus they usually gave plenty of notice any which way before those pushbacks one way or the other. But I don't think that's a problem. It sucks, but was it Miyamoto, right, from Nintendo? I said look, the product ships when it ships, right? Do you want a buggy product, right? If you want a high quality product, then there are going to be delays sometimes, and that's
this is anecdotal.
But they don't
Just
end up doing it a lot at that same level that CD Projekt Red goes. And then you had the faith of the entire kind of Witcher community really expecting this awesome product and having a lot of hope and faith put into this, and you can see it keep coming worse and worse, and then it ends up being a huge problem. So I guess I'm kind of confused as far as why this doesn't work as a good example, because it was a huge letdown, and it was a lot of yanking.
But it wasn't for pushing it back. Going back to Elden Ring, right? I want a great product next week. Next Friday, I want a great product. And it's already been finalized. But if they had decided they found some sort of game-breaking bug, right? Then I need you to push that back. I need you to push it back a month or 2 months. I'm gonna hate it, but I want a good product.
How do you guys feel when because let's go back a few years, right? Everybody remember No Man No Sky, right? How disaster that was, right? I honestly think that they should have at least waited a couple more months, but they warned everyone, and the game was still a disaster. No multiplayer, no anything that they promised, and then they got a lot of backlash. People threw them under the bus, and then years later, they started to redeem themselves by adding free updates over time.
Well, to be honest, both of them are really shit examples.
So let's
really shit examples, I think.
So can I address your Elden Ring?
Okay, Turk, and then I want to go to Desperado, and who else? We have Zig, and then Wick. Okay.
So there's already
also this person.
There's already a very well-known exploit inside of the some of the net code built into both Elder Scrolls 3 as well as Elden Ring. I forget the name of it specifically, but if you actually activate this exploit, you can execute remote commands on target machines and effectively take over people's computers. That's why if you try to connect
remote code execution,
and if you try to actually connect to any of the servers for any of the other Elder Scrolls games, you can't, because they've turned it off. That game-breaking bug already exists, and it's been confirmed to be in Elden Ring. They haven't confirmed if it's going to launch with this bug in place or if it's going to be fixed. So it's you're already off to a rocky start. I hope for the best.
They have in fact confirmed that they have a fix rolling out of Elden Ring for that one. And in the meantime, all the PC servers for the other games are down and will be fixed after the
release.
full
Yep.
the release of Elden Ring. But Elden Ring is confirmed to be developed with awareness of this bug, and this bug is confirmed to be fixed or at least taken care of for the Elden Ring release.
So play it on a PS5. Got it. All right, let's go to.
There's also no proof it's actually a remote code execution glitch, by the way. There's just like reports of it, and then they just got very. We don't have any proof of it happening.
Let's go
But
to
they fixed it.
Desperado.
Like we don't have any proof of remote code execution happening. Sorry. Yeah.
Let's go to Desperado. Yep.
So I wonder if one of the main problems with producing these games and whatnot is not necessarily just the company that's like creating it, with the example of like Anthem that BioWare kind of messed up, but the fact that EA, which owns BioWare, is forcing BioWare to put out a product no matter what because
100%.
of shareholders and profits that are like projections that they had already put out for it. And whether or not it's completed or not, they still want you to push it out there. And that's what's causing the main problem with these games, with the way they're being released. Yeah.
And
exactly.
100% similar story with No Man's Sky as well.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
No Man's Sky is a very, very different game. It was a small indie studio with a dream that had like every single shit happening to them during launch. They ran out of money. They decided to release it anyways. Like they had like their office like being flooded twice or something. That's a very, very bad example for like.
Yeah, but they were also sponsored by, I think it was Sony, or they were having them publish for them, and they had to release the title because they didn't want to like push it back, and they weren't being allowed to push back by them. So it works in that case, what he was saying as well.
But I'm seeing a trend that these big name games that at launch they're not good products. It takes about another year to a year and a half for them to finally get to their initial stable point. Cyberpunk's 1.5 is kind of like the realization of where it should have been. No Man's Sky, I forget the name of the release, but like they had a big patch that was like, okay, this is what the game should have been, but that was like a year later. So it's like there was crunch in all of these different instances. Which amount of crunch is acceptable?
I'd like to point out something that since I've been listening. See,
1 second. We got a lot of people. We got a lot of people in line. But we'll get to you, Dewey. Just gotta get those people waiting patiently. Zig is gone, so we'll go to Wick, and then we'll go to Omni. I believe it was next, and then then we'll go to you, Dewey.
Okay, so I mentioned this on the closed panel a bit. Is we can give examples of where game companies have been punished by their player base for their poor behavior, poor releases. But there are a lot of examples where they just still make money. That even though, and this is why a lot of the upper management like pushes it, because they're like, we need the money now. And yes, we know that long term it's going to hurt us, but we don't care because we need the money now based on how their companies are run and things like that. And again, we see the fans being okay with pushing it back if it's not ready. Generally, your fan base are going to trust you, are going to say, hey, if you need more time, we'll be willing to give you that time. That's anecdotal, but that's generally what I see across the board. People are willing to give the company time to make a better product. I don't think it's consumer pressure here. I think it's coming from the managerial corporate, the higher ups. That's where I see the pressure coming from more than anything.
But that good faith is starting to run out now.
Sure, I think so, but I don't know if that's enough to change the basic equation. Money talks at the end of the day, and we're all kind of chasing the next big thing. I keep telling myself, okay, no, don't buy a game on launch day because you don't. I've been burned so many times. But then something really cool comes up like Elden Ring. I'm like, oh, pre-purchase. I'm going to get in on this. Oh, this is really good. It's just how humans generally operate. Again, we're not punishing these companies. These companies don't really get punished overall. Like we talk about Diablo 3, for example, in the thing, they got punished a little bit, but they still made a buttload of money.
I mean, did you see what happened to
of money?
Oh my god.
Like No Man's Sky got punished really hard for something they didn't really.
Yeah,
cause.
did you
And
did you
why,
see
why
the
did Cyberpunk need all the punishing it got? Like the game was on release, it was very buggy, but it was genuinely it was a decent game. I had a great time. I played it. It was good. We just like talked ourselves into a mass psychosis of like hating on the game just because cars spawned into each other. Like in Witcher, we like laughed at the horse spawning on houses and we're like, oh, funny horse go boom, and then the car like goes boom, and we just get mad for some reason.
I
Like,
don't know.
the game was fine.
There was
like,
a lot of
it was
game-breaking
great, but it
bugs
was
there.
fine.
I don't know about that. I think
Well,
it
we
depends on
love
what
Skyrim for
machine
it.
you were playing
We love
on.
Skyrim for it.
Yeah, the platforms make a
Like-
difference.
Yeah.
Like the difference between say PC or PlayStation release was
I made
quite
a
different.
video on why they should not have released it on the base PlayStation 4.
And they get punished as bad as they
Technologically, it
could.
should
Yeah.
not have been on those platforms.
Let's go to Omni and then Dewey. And if Zig is back up running, Zig, your camera isn't popping up. Maybe turn it off and turn it back on. But anyway, Omni and Dewey.
Actually, can I hear what Melbird has to say first? And then
Milburn.
I'll go after or something.
Milburn.
Melbird, Dewey or something?
Yes,
The next
that's
guy.
me.
The next
Okay,
guy.
Dewey.
I want to
Okay.
hear him first.
Okay, guys. So, my experience is a little different. I used to work around a company called Software, and my roommates all made something called Podracer and other things. So before there was like internet and Steam and Portal and everything else, you could tell that the people that were coming out were what the best games are the simple games that are quick and down and dirty, and you get them out. Example is the kid who just sold the game for like $800,000 is the Word game to the New York Times. The best games are something that are easily approachable. Mario Brothers, other games like that are easily approachable. Guess what? They always come in under budget usually.
I don't like that. I don't like that phrasing of best because I tend to enjoy more crunchy games, more 4X games that are not simple, that are not easily to approach. I do get it that when you talk about best from a financial standpoint, you're exactly right. But when we talk about best, I just don't think that's a word to use. I don't know. Small.
Well,
I think nowadays with the culture of the online space and how we've developed, we get like information on very quick hits type of basis. It's permeated into the video game industry. That's why the most popular games are the ones that you can go into like a game session and complete it, and then you just go straight back into it. Like we see this in battle royales, we see this in mobile games. It's just very, very quick, easy, repetitive game loops. So I think companies nowadays are tailoring making games that are just like that, and they're focusing more on the psychology of getting people on like this treadmill grind to keep them more engaged into that game and always just retained into it. A lot of the games like Elden Ring, Dark Souls, stuff like that, it's not as big as the other games for that reason, even though it still retains like such a huge fan base. So there's a reason why Fortnite and League of Legends and all those are still like really, really big and really, really popular, because it expands to like this wide community of people, and because it just plays on the psychology of today's culture.
There's also the producers kind of movie thing to some of these games too. So you can make literally in some cases, we're just going to we're just going to say what we're going to do, and then we're going to spend this money. There's been a lot of flaws because people said, we're not really concentrating on the focus. Is this any fun? Can my 10-year-old play it? They just focus on the people who say, I understand the 4X games and I understand RPG games. Those are really complicated. Link, I remember we having problems working with Link for the Ocarina and stuff like that. It's very old, but the idea is that it was very accessible. It was very fun because it was something that you could have access to. Guitar Hero there's a lot of Guitar Hero stuff that's similar to Guitar Hero right now that people are using with real guitars, and they're on Twitch right now. It's easy and it's accessible, and it actually teaches them something, and they enjoy that time with them. So you have to decide how much time of a day that you want to take from this person, right? And how much is the average person going to slice off? Like for us, it's not that unusual for many of us to watch 3 hours of YouTube a day, and then we have an 8-hour.
Well, like a take at that, like the gaming industry, like we're talking about nowadays is like something very, very different from what we had like
Yeah,
10 years, 20
pretty
years,
much.
30 years ago. And I think we can't really draw any comparisons there anymore because like we have completely different monetization strategies, completely different target audiences. For example, a game like FIFA is an incredibly successful, incredibly accessible game that was incredibly well managed. But it's also a game that I, as a person that like would probably identify as a gamer, totally like hate. I would never play it. I don't think anything about it is appealing, and it doesn't interest me in any way. Yet it's like one of the most successful franchises in this whole industry. So I think it's very important that we like differentiate between like we have like family games, we have like strategy games, and all of those games have like different audiences, different monetization practices, different like challenges in development, and like I think it's very hard to talk about like gaming as a whole. It's
So
right now with
specifically-
monetization. Go ahead.
Something like FIFA markets itself because people expect the next game to come out anyway. So I mean, there's really no even need to market it.
Well, there's also like the microtransactions that go into FIFA, you know, because if you play online, you want to build the best team. So of course, those type of games are going to make money and last a long time because that's built to a competitive like FIFA market. So that's going to make a lot of money.
And
Can
people
I
love
just explain a
That's what I
moment?
was going to say. Depending on the type of game, there's certain monetization strategies that are more likely. So with FIFA, they have the packs, right? And that has like loot box mechanics. But apparently this super popular game has one of the least favorite mechanics when it comes to microtransactions. And it's counterproductive, and we're kind of feeding the dragon we want to destroy.
Well,
Can I
in some
just-
countries, those loot boxes and other things are actually illegal. They've been trying to do that in the EU, and then
Well,
if they
not
do
illegal,
that,
but they're now heavily regulated, and they have.
well,
the
I'm saying
percentages and all
they're
that stuff.
trying to move they've gone through court stuff and they've gone through a lot of things. So, an example is the guys who made Portal made one really good game, but they own Steam, and Steam there's a
Don't
lot
talk
of little
bad about Valve. Don't do it.
When are they gonna make Left 4 Dead? When are they gonna make Left 4 Dead 3 or?
I'll compliment them when they have Half-Life 3. All right.
Yeah.
When are they going to run Steam appropriately? We'll talk about that there. So,
The Steam
So
Deck
I think there's a
launches in
conversation-
week. That's the biggest thing coming to hardware gaming ever.
So there's a conversation I think that I would be interested in having. I don't know if the rest of you are, and if you're not, just tell me to shut up. That's cool. And how us chasing what's popular and making things so wide-ranging in desirability that as an older gamer, I don't feel I have a place in a lot of the game market today. There's very few games that come out now that I feel are targeted to my desires, to what I like. I like the crunch. I like the more mechanically satisfying elements. And more games these days seem to take that out because it's not popular. It simply isn't. Most people like the simpler stuff, the stuff that you just pick up and play, as was mentioned. That's what makes money. And so that's what game companies will gravitate towards making. And while there are examples of games today being made that are mechanically satisfying to me, I see myself being pushed out of this sphere, at least.
So can we not call this crunch? Can we not call that same crunch because that's a separate topic?
Crunchy.
We're also talking like you're talking about like grinding rather than crunch, right?
not
In
just
terms
like
of the games?
like very, very
Or-
awkward to play.
Yeah, like I when we were
Janky.
talking about crunch, I thought we were talking about crunch time, right? Like
Yeah.
Oh,
the
yeah,
amount
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
time that
I'm not
it
talking about
takes
that.
to make a game.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not talking
So-
about that. I'm not talking about that. I
So
was just-
what type of crunch are you talking about then?
crunchy,
Grind
like crunchy,
mechanics.
mechanical crunchy.
Thank you.
Okay, so
You mean
like where
like
you have to
grinding?
process yourself, like process the game mechanics yourself to. Okay, yeah, I understand what you mean. I
I
just
don't
had
think,
Mechanical
I don't think we
mastery.
do.
mastery.
What exactly do you
Okay,
mean?
so
Explain.
when you say okay, I come from a
Do you
war-
mean like grind?
Hold on,
Like,
Sure.
let
Let me
explain.
explain. Let me explain. I come from a tabletop
40K?
background, a tabletop
40K.
gaming background, and a lot of the
Okay.
times, what is used to describe intricate mechanics that are deep and meaningful, the word they use is crunchy because you could really eat it. It's satisfying. It's a good meal. So that's
Right.
when I say crunchy, that's what I mean. I'm sorry if that caused confusion. I should have realized it might cause a little confusion. But when I say crunchy, what I mean is mechanically deep and satisfying that are hard. They're difficult to get into, difficult perhaps to understand. A good example of this that's been released very recently was Shadow Empire, a 4X game with logistics trees and things like that. It was very hard. It was so intricate. It was very hard to really, unless you read the manual, read the guides, played it a few times,
Like Total
really
War.
going on.
I have a
Yeah,
very quick
pretty much.
remark to the point you've just made. I totally get what you mean, and I totally get where you're coming from, but I would strongly disagree with the conclusion you've drawn. I think, like, actually, there have never been as many great, like, crunchy, janky, deep games being made like now. There's just like so many other games being made that you barely even notice how many great games and like how much budget some of those games are getting nowadays. Like Crusader Kings is like an incredibly well done game that had like it had a lot of crunch. Like I know it's not quite what you were going for, but like compared to like back in the days, there's so much more money being thrown at so many cool projects that I don't think it's fair to say that like you're being left behind. There's just like a new gaming growing like besides the gaming you're used to.
Well, it's harder for me to find.
Well, that's the thing, because like back in the day, like 20, 30, 40 years ago, the era of games then was like a lot of people had a dream. They wanted to make like a really good game. They didn't have that much money. But now in like today's era of games, where we have big companies that see the huge potential of gaming, I think it's like almost as big as music. Maybe it's even bigger than music at the moment, like in the amount of revenue generated across the world. All these big corporations are going into gaming, and they're trying to now, instead of making good games, they're more trying to say, how do we make the most money out of this game? Games are less about enjoying things, it's more of a product.
Well, that happened also in the late 80s, in the the 90s, where everyone was making a game console like Philips and stuff like that, and some of that kind of helped crash the video game market. You know, the great video game crash of the 80s?
The 80s, yeah.
Yeah.
80s, yeah.
So like when we talk about companies like putting a lot of money in it, it's kind of a good thing, and it's kind of also a bad thing, because we have to learn from those mistakes that made everything worse the first time around.
Well,
I'll give you an example. Can I give you an example? Can I just give a real quick example to I'm sorry, Rainbay? Is that your name? Yeah. So let's look at Stellaris as a good example of how these things have changed. So Stellaris famously in one of their earlier patches, or in the original in its original iteration, had 3 different types of travel. You had warp gates, you had hyperdrive and hyper lanes, and then you had just normal warp travel. They removed that because it was too hard to balance. People really weren't digging that extra options, and a lot of people would say it made the game better, and for them it did, but for me it did not. This is an example of a game that I enjoyed the direction it was going in, changing direction to satisfy a more large player base in a way that left me behind. Does that make sense?
I totally get that, but I still think that like gaming as a whole has grown so much that nowadays games that are just as janky and like I just call it like crunchy as the original Stellaris, like are being made like in a like there are so many like Stellaris ones being made right now. You just don't realize because there's like so many other games, but there's like for every Stellaris that was made like back then, there's 10 being developed now, and you never even hear about them because like there's so many games out there, and the like it's amazing how incredibly fast the whole industry has been growing. But like there's so many great small indie games and small janky games with like incredible budgets and incredible quality even being developed right now. Like it's not all that bad, I think.
A good example of the indie to more traditional development would be a game like Rust, where back when it first came out, it was a very survival, building your base-esque game, super crude in its implementation, super buggy, but the community behind Rust was so great that as the game continued to progress through early access, the game got better. They changed engines a couple different times, but then they eventually got to a more mainstream standpoint that they were able to finally go out of early access into official production. And now Rust is one of the poster childs of several different other technologies behind NVIDIA. So it's like we need to highlight a lot of these smaller successful games and try to propagate that forward rather than propping up these companies that are going with the safe games that are pumping out lots of money. We need to support smaller groups.
So
But like, there's no
this is-
contradiction. There's no
so-
contradiction. We can like both support smaller games and accept that FIFA is an incredibly successful, well-maintained franchise. I hate FIFA, but it's good, and it's obviously has success.
Omni wanted to say something, and then we'll go maybe Dewey and Roadman and our new person yeah, something, right? You guys want to jump in?
Oh, okay. So back to Yamato's point with like the Great Crash and everything. I think the reason why like it's working now and in this day and age is because the world is like very like tightly knit as much more than before. Like I can order something from America and it'll come over here where I am in Australia like the next day. So gaming, the big explosion of it is more because the accessibility of people around the entire world. That's why we have so many indie companies being able to make a game and like they can sell like heaps and heaps and heaps of them because like everyone around the world can buy it. That's why I think one of the biggest issues with the problem with the 80s was them companies putting monies into making consoles was, unless it's like really successful in their area or nation, it was going to flop. Whereas nowadays, they can like expend so much money into it and get so much revenue back because they have like the massive like global audience that they can pull from and like sell to.
But the cost to get into consoles was significantly cheaper back then too.
Right, so we should all just be playing video games on the PC and get rid of all the consoles. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, unironically.
Oh,
Yeah,
but,
totally.
like,
I agree with
let's
that.
say- if we go to the example of, let's say a console costs $1 to make, but you only have like 100 people that can buy it, right? You're gonna get like $100. But if it costs like $1,000 to make, but you have like 10 million people to buy it, you're gonna get like a lot more. That's why I think it's working in today's day and age compared to like the previous age in like the 80s.
But the size of the market back then, it's not a very good comparison, dude.
Yeah, so today's size is so like much bigger compared to then. So that's why I think it's viable to work.
Let's go to Roadman, and then Dewey, and yeah, and then Desperado.
I think that gaming is going to be going towards the NFT route. Like I know everybody's gonna say, "Oh, this is not." But you saw everybody just, "Oh my god, NFT."
Just spit it, King. Get it out there.
But NFTs are.
I'm ready for this talk.
The NFTs are going to happen because these companies want to make money, right? And they're going to push out these NFTs that are like skins, like a CS:GO type skin with a you have a skin on your gun, you have a skin on some type of thing. You're going to be able to trade them user to user, and that's going to be the marketplace in the next 5 years. That's where we're headed, is NFTs, I think.
People agree with that?
No.
I totally agree with that, and I think it's perfectly fine that it's gonna happen. As long as it's gonna happen in FIFA and PSE, and they can do that all day long. I don't care about it. I will not interact with it.
So
Microtransactions were gonna happen. Microtransactions happened, and I have never had to interact with many of them, since most games that implemented them simply did not interest me a lot. So I think
these companies are not making games for your enjoyment. They're making games to make money.
For money, yeah.
So I have a question.
And if
for
I
you
don't
then,
enjoy them,
Rohan.
I will not play them. Yeah, it's
I have
very
a
easy.
question
Like,
for
we
you,
don't have to
Isn't
get
the
angry
indie
at this.
industry, like literally the indie games industry, is a bulwark against that whole profit motive? People are making the games to be enjoyable for people to just play them, to enjoy the artwork and the story and all that. Don't you think that's like a completely against the profit motive? Don't you guys think that? Like,
I would say the emphasis is more on the game, not the money.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, right?
I want to push back more against this NFT thing though, because I have a question for Roadman. So you mentioned skins, you mentioned things like weapon skins and things like that. These existed well before NFTs that could be and they could be traded among the player base, and it became a secondary marketplace as well. What utility would making it into an NFT provide? I think NFTs, as they're being used now, as I've seen they're being used now, are a quick way to reuse assets by a company to make a quick buck. It feels like a scam. It doesn't feel like it will improve the game for the player, and I just think it's a fad that's, again, skins, cool.
Yes. You're right. It's a fad, but that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, it
They are
totally is
going
gonna
to
happen.
they're going to use that fad, and they're going to make money off of that fad, and the children are going to be advertised for that fad, and they're going to buy the skins, and they're going to sell the skins, and it's good because you know why it's good? Because
No,
it is good because
No,
when you buy a skin, and it's back in the day, you bought a skin and it didn't exist. It's not real. When you buy a skin now, it's an NFT and you can sell it. If you can actually make money off of your gaming, that is
you can sell it before. I made thousands of dollars doing this. I promise you. It happened before.
NFTs add nothing of value or nothing of utility to the space. NFTs are a complete fad, but they add nothing. NFTs in gaming are a complete meme. There's nothing of substance behind it. Like, we can go in depth on that. I can have this conversation for 2 hours. There's no value except the value you put in it, and there's no doubt about it that we will put some value into it. Like,
there is
NFTs will happen. There isn't. No, there really isn't.
Not at the moment. Like, if you compare NFTs to skins and loot boxes, the reason why loot boxes and skins popped up is because they had like some inherent value. You can like make your gun look good. You can get things out of loot boxes. What NFTs doesn't really provide any inherent value. So until they like make something out of it, then I don't think it's
you can just link an NFT to a skin, but distributed ledger does not add anything if you can't connect things to it. You cannot put things on it without having someone put it on. If you don't trust the developer that puts the skin to your NFT, the NFT is worthless. If you don't trust Marketplace at Steam right now, the NFT will not be worth anything either.
How many people here have bought skins in a game?
Oh, sure.
I mean, like, fighting game skins, but who's ever unlocked something in a video game? Like,
we're talking about real money currency, real money.
USD.
Okay, so you've bought a skin. So that skin that you bought is the same exact thing as the NFT. That's
it's not.
That's my point.
It's not true at all.
No, it is. It is.
So many skins are only one of a kind. Like, I cannot name any game that has a one of a kind skin, unless maybe unless maybe somebody like took a 3D camera and put their face inside the game. That would be cool, and maybe people could be like artistic and put their own.
There's special cases. There's special cases.
Let me not go down the whole crypto route. It's really stupid, and I would love to have this conversation for hours, but I think we have a really interesting topic right here, and I don't think we should waste this interesting topic on this stupid fucking cancerous growth that crypto is in gaming. We can talk about this all day long. I have very many strong opinions on it.
Let's go.
Yeah,
let's not.
But anyway, but there are unique skins, like one time only skins. They do exist.
I have
like seasonal stuff, but
that sounds
not even seasonal stuff. I mean, just like one-time only things, like for like championships and stuff. They'll make
like in Smite, there is a skin that's basically a Thanos skin, but it looks like heaven. It's called Archangel Thanos, and it's a $100 skin, and they never bring it back. The only time they bring it back is only for charity streams.
Yeah, but that's not unique.
Like
that. Yeah.
That can't really be an NFT, can it?
Let's go to Dewey, and then Desperado be waiting patiently.
Okay, so what I was talking about, you guys were talking about too. Is like, if you had $10 million and you had to spend it on games, would you rather spend it on 10 groups or one big group? Right? You can do that. That's your decision.
Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, because that doesn't really make any sense.
Okay, so let's say if I want to develop, I have $10 million, right?
Well, to develop a game. Gotcha. That's the only thing that everyone was missing. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's
I'm making decision, and so if I make the decision, do I go with 10 different groups to develop 10 different games, or do I put it all in one basket and do something similar to a Halo, or something that people say, this is going to be really good. We got voice actors. We got everybody in line. We're going to make this game. By the way, that's about what the budget is if you're going to go to a AAA game. And I really despise it for a lot of reasons. But
I mean,
what
obviously
happens
the
is
diversity route, right? Obviously, we would all choose to more diversify our holdings here.
Well,
what if
assuming
I said,
everyone's like all those groups are the same, unless you're saying one group is like
well, now
Square
I
Enix
say,
versus
okay,
9 EAs or something. I don't know.
now part
Like
of my
really
10
bad
million,
companies.
but what I can do is I can get a large IP to be part of it. Now, what's happened in the past was like Star Wars, and they drilled that into the ground. They really did. They screwed it up in like 100 different ways, right? They got bad pub. They did everything they possibly could. They had unlimited money. But if you take these small groups that have, let's say, I said, okay, I want to see you guys make a board game out of it, out of the 10 groups, and I say, I want you to make a board game out of every single one of those games that you're going to do and lay it out for me beforehand. I think that's kind of what happened to Cyberpunk. Nobody ever did that. And I was listening to you guys talk about different things. It's like none of the people that are in the accounting really. I said I would sit there and say, do any of you play chess? Have you ever played D&D? Have you ever done any of these games at all? No, that's not our job. That's what they say. But guess what? Sid Meier would say, and used to be able to go call Sid Meier. Yeah, that's part of your job. You know.
But then they would also be the people who would agree with diversifying their assets into 10 different projects that might all
No, they
have
don't.
like two.
Not in my experience. My experience is that if you can
Accountants?
lock into Star Wars, you lock into Star Wars, or you lock in like something big like that they could identify that they've seen in the movie Pokemon or something. They'll go with that.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
if
'cause
that's
there's
an option,
Well, you-
Instead of
really an
doing
option,
the opposite,
really?
instead of
Right?
doing the other way, which is like, okay, Games Workshop. Games Workshop says, okay, we're not going to let anybody hold individual IPs, but for example, Total War, Warhammer, all those other games, they're all developed by different companies. And if you had a choice of working with a company like Games Workshop or like Wizards of the Coast, who would you go with? Who's
Hey,
IP
I gotta
do
go,
you want?
guys. I'm gonna bounce. I'll see you later.
Yep.
Bye bye.
Have a good
It was
one.
great having you.
See you
Nice to meet you.
I love his videos. So anyway, but which would you want to be part of? Would you want to be with a Meyer? You just have to ask yourself, what would you, because it's a time, money, and effort, and it's going to be the next 2 to 3 years of your life.
What would you?
Which brand and which license best serves the game I'm trying to develop?
Well, okay? Who are you trying to serve? Who do you want your customer base to be?
And that's the question to ask. If I'm making an RTS, does it fit better with Star Wars with the licensing fees attached to that, or going with Games Workshop? Games Workshop has a pretty good backing with their tabletop. They have a much better breadth of knowledge when it comes to real-time strategy games, so it would make more sense to go with that brand and that licensing agreement than going with Star Wars.
Except that you're going to discount the Disney marketing machine.
Yeah, if you wanted to make a Star Wars RTS game, you would have to deal with that realm. That's how game development works. You pick your
that
battles.
means that you're going to have layers in your company just to be able to deal with that, and you're going to have layers on their side to deal with you. And many times those guys have meetings that they don't understand what's going on.
I think you keep adding complexity to these.
So what's the point of this whole thing?
It doesn't.
But
But
I was just talking
every
about,
time we
like,
try to answer a question, you're adding another layer of complexity, and we're not getting anywhere. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I think
it's probably just not suited for the format.
I think the main one was like if you want to work with Disney. They're probably going to be the better bet than doing 10 randoms, right? That's I think everyone agrees with that. Like Disney's huge and Star Wars is huge, and you're going to have plenty of work. Even if the game is absolute shit, you're going to have plenty of work for years and years to come.
But there's implications with that, right? So like Marvel's Avengers, the game that was made by Montreal, Eidos Montreal, right? Total flop. A Disney IP. They did not deliver what they were going to be delivering. They got all sorts of flack. So whenever they started doing Guardians of the Galaxy, rewrote how they were going to actually deliver the game and how they were going to do it as a service towards the community. Much better product, much better handling of the IP, as well as the licensing agreement. they caught much less flack from the people that granted the license. So if you're going to go with the Disney IP, you've got to deliver a Disney IP grade game. And we've seen that with Star Wars, with Battlefront. Jedi Fallen Order actually was a pretty decent game from EA, and the people praised that game because it was no bullshit. It was a good game. So it's like you
Well, what
pick
about-
who you want to partner with.
So Desperado, hold on, Desperado's waiting.
I think one of the things that we're also you may have talked about this before on the other panel and whatnot, but where the gaming industry is filled with content creators and then artists. And I would say your indie creators are more of your artists, whereas your corporate companies are content creators that are focused heavily on formulas that seem to work over and over and over again.
Yeah, they
And
focus on
therefore,
the algorithm,
right.
the algorithm
Whereas, yeah, exactly. So when you have, these artists or these indie creators, they're putting their heart and soul into these games in the hopes that you get enjoyment out of it from their art. Whereas they're not monetarily focused on exactly how much money that they can necessarily pull out of a game while giving you an experience that may not necessarily reach the level that you were hoping for.
See, that was my argument in that indie games might actually be even better than the AAA games because they're going to put their heart and soul into it. But, if you want to make a ton of money, go with Disney.
This is also
Like,
prevalent in Hollywood as well, with Hollywood movies. We've seen not how many times have we seen a sequel or something that's being rehashed from an old story or from a previous story or whatnot. The actual amount of new art coming out in that realm is
Y'all got any more than Star Wars movies?
Less.
Well, I think.
Yeah, but I mean,
totally
like,
agree
how
with what you just
often
said.
have we seen indie movies that suck? Indie games that suck ass because they have no money back.
Yeah, because we don't hear about them. Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
it's,
not
it's-
because we don't hear about them, because they look
But
like they're
we
boring
don't.
as fuck and they look like shit.
Well, hey, I would like to speak
All
up.
hail the
some-
frog.
Even the ones that get
I mean,
big are like artsy
Oh,
and boring as
God.
fuck. What do you mean?
But there are special cases, Doobie, where an indie studio can work on a game and it becomes great, and the fans start to support it, and
Papers,
it becomes
please.
even better. And
Inscription.
there is a fighting game called Skullgirls. The community
Oh.
loved it; they backed it, and like we're still getting new characters up until today, right? And it was a small
Yeah, but
studio,
that's
and
still
people
being driven by
supported
the profit motive.
And Stardew
Yeah,
Valley.
that's still being driven by the
think
profit
it's- I
motive.
think
which
it's
started
is
off
really
as
conservative.
to go like Indian corporate and draw like hard lines. Like I totally agree with like the sentiment you just put out, Desperado. But I think like most of the people that make video games are probably like that actually make video games are probably artists at heart. Like the
Well, you have
concept artists,
you have
like there
three
are
groups.
millions of brilliant people working on games, and there's just like different degrees to which the art can be like realized into the actual product, and at what points corners have to be cut. We generally see a trend that like as games get more and more expensive and more capital is invested in them, that like the bigger games like have less and less artistic freedom given to their artists in order to like make sure the capital is like being invested properly. And why this is kind of sad, this also means that we get like more and more impressive games, and we see the tech being moved forward to a point where like even small indie studios can like nowadays pick up Unreal Engine 4 and develop breathtaking games and realize their artistic vision. And I also think that like there are lots of indie artists that are only in it for indie developers, indie publishers that are only in it for the money and try to make like the next best Minecraft and then retire to a nice Hollywood villa. Like I don't think it's productive to like draw like clear lines and like go like that's like the art and that's like just the capitalist swines. Like I don't like that. I think
Just show
Has anyone seen?
people
Oh,
have
go ahead.
worked on Unity, have worked with Unity, have you coded? Yeah. It turns out dog shit code, but it's fast. I mean,
Yeah, I haven't
you
done it. I
can-
was going to. But I
shit
don't think it
up.
really matters.
I have to hop off. here. I'll talk to you all
But
later.
what
Take
what
care.
it means is that the work
Yeah,
of
man.
10 people
Oh, see ya.
can be
Bye.
done by one person. So the excuse of it could really do, you used to have 20 people to work on it to make one game over 1 year. And now you can do it with a lot less people. So then you get a lot more control from the artist. So the argument becomes more and more.
It's not
let's go
always a
with
good thing
smaller
though.
studio.
Like, what if if the artistic vision sucks and nobody likes it? and now they spent a year working on this fucking game, and it goes nowhere, and that person gets out of the game industry because they didn't have enough people telling them, "Hey, your fucking artistic idea sucks ass," and nobody's gonna like it.
Well, the way we prevent that
This
is
is what
we go,
focus groups are for, right?
no,
What is this argument? What
what
if
you-
something stupid happens? Oh, yeah, then I guess something
Well, not
stupid
just
happens. I don't know,
stupid.
fuck. Yeah, no, that sounds like that's your
not
argument.
just
Like,
not
what
just
if
stupid,
something
right? I'm
bad
telling you,
happens?
you guys are speaking as if like, you know, as if these artists are being like oppressed by game developers or some shit.
Yeah.
Right, and as if the evil capitalist game developers and game publishers are just squashing them beneath their heels, right? And
To be honest,
it's really
they kind of
still.
are.
No,
They kind
no,
of
they're
are,
not.
but
Is that what
that's a
you're trying to
different
say?
topic. That's not the artistic.
Yeah, that's a different topic.
Yeah, that's like the topic we're actually here for, and that's a crunch topic. And if we want to go back to that, we can go back to that. Like there is the fact that like artists are being crushed under like that was like what we just talked about, like 2 hours ago.
But being crunched by EA is bad. Being crunched by your own deliverable is good.
Wait, why is there a difference?
You ask these people.
I think that's what he was saying.
There's like that's actually a very good question, Davido.
I think that's more
it's a very good
perspective of the consumer, where they don't really perceive the crunch as good or bad until they get the product. And it's like, oh, when we get this game, it's like really good. It's like, okay, the crunch was acceptable, unless on the flip side, if they get the game and they crunched and it was delayed and all that stuff, they see it as like it's a horrible idea because the game was bad. I don't think like most people really think into this and draw moral lines on what if crunching is good or bad. It's more like if they get the product.
Yeah, I have like
And
kind
that's
of a
what it
hot
looks
take
like.
there. I think that like creating art is like inherently self-destructive, and we probably all
Why?
acknowledge that like creating art is kind of self-destructive, like in a certain
How?
way.
No, he's
It's
talking
a-
about
I
principle
don't know
of
about that.
passion. He's saying
yeah,
that all
I think
art
we
is
just tend
suffering.
to.
That's a very French
Like
European.
I think there's a certain part to like creating art that's like kind of self-destructive, like, and I think we just tend to like judge like after the game has been released, like, is this enough art for me to just like for me to tell myself like they liked suffering for it? Like it's kind of a weird argument, but I think that's kind of.
But
how we think
how
about
is it
it.
self-destructive?
Oh, it's like
I
playing
think he's
League of
talking about
Legends,
like
right?
own.
Like, you
I'm
find
saying it is.
enjoyment
I'm
in
just
the
saying
game,
like
but
we
it's like
we kind of like workaholics, like this whole topic. Like we kind of have like humans have a tendency to do things that are very bad for them if they have like passion for a project, and we kind of try to rationalize it like post-release. Like this game's really, for example, for Elden Ring, I know FromSoft has shitty working conditions, but personally I'm convinced this is art, and so for myself, like I'm kind of rationalizing that like probably those artists went there because they really wanted to make a FromSoft game, and they probably didn't have a great time, but they followed their dreams. And so for me, like I'm probably kind of telling myself it's fine. I'm not sure if that's the correct take, but I think that's what's like going on behind the
So
scenes.
you
there.
can follow
I
your
understand what you're
dreams
getting at, yeah.
from software, but you can't follow your dreams if you're going to be an artist with EA
Yeah,
goes
I
for
can totally see
Blizzard,
that.
right? Like
or Blizzard.
everyone wants to. Everyone wants to work on Diablo, the next Diablo, and.
And this is where this argument falls apart, because you're being pressed and you're being oppressed by your employer, but the result of the game, you're either for it or against it based on your consumer's acceptation of that end product, and that's bad.
I was not making an argument, Turk. There was no argument being made. Like nothing can fall apart. It was
No,
just like
he's
how I
making,
think people.
He's making one right now.
The argument was made earlier in the panel where the Final Fantasy XIV people pushed back a deliverable in order to produce a product, and the community was cool with it, and it was good. But when CDPR does a similar thing, and the product was bad, and then that was considered bad. So it's like y'all are being oppressed by the same people trying to make a lot of money from a particular product. So it's like pick a side. You either are for or against it.
Wait a second. Is the money okay? Here's the problem.
I would say that
like
I don't think it was. Wait. I think it was a. I'm not sure who said that, but I think it's equally bad, right? Like it would be equally
it's
bad.
just more understandable, right?
Yeah, like
yeah.
To be honest, like I think there's a very different like if I give you two examples, I think we can probably agree that like they're different. Like one would be an artist working their ass off in like art school and then trying to go like to like, for example, like FromSoft because they love Dark Souls and they want to work under the direction of the great Miyazaki, or like someone like coming out of like computer science school, like getting a job at like some software dev firm, like losing the job, getting hired by EA, and then like
Someone
kind of
that
getting stuck in an
develops
abusive work environment. I think there's like a
develops
difference there.
Prey.
I don't think it. So if you want to make there's the design of the game, and then there's the people that are the coders, and then there's the artists and the other people that are in the chain. If you want to design games, don't be a coder. Just forget about it. Be the person who just says, this is the way the game is going to be. This is how it's going to look. Then get some artists and people to put together. Okay? The art has an intrinsic value in of itself. Many video games
getting abused.
Wait. Many video games are not made to make money. So it's an art.
Which video games aren't made to make money?
What the fuck? What do you mean that games are made to make money?
I would say that they are made.
Hold on.
Yeah, I want to understand what he's saying. So, like,
I'm sorry. It's my fault.
There are many passion products which get made in companies that they say, well, I'll tell you what. If you
Anthem.
If you
passion
get,
product.
If you finish this other game, we'll give you these guys for 4 months because we're going to have this gap. You can work on this game.
Can you give us an example of one of those games?
We'll let you do that on the... What?
Minecraft is a perfect example. Small
Minecraft
project that suddenly turned profitable.
No, wait, hold on. That's not what he's talking about, though. He's talking about it sounds like a game company, right? Saying, hey, you guys can have 4 months off to work. No, I guess you weren't listening to him. He's saying a games company says, hey, if you guys finish this game on time, we'll give you these guys for 4 months, off to work on your other game. There's some passion project. I don't think that's what Minecraft was.
That was a private project, but there is, in fact, there's a German.
Yeah, so it's not what he's
studio.
talking about. It's something else.
There's a German modding studio that's very professional, and they aren't making money there. They're just creating mods for free.
What's it called?
They have released Pure AI. They've released a Skyrim mod, Enderal. It's on Steam at this point.
What's it called?
Enderal. I can post it in chat. That's actually
and what happens in your contract? See, every contract, when you start out as a new artist or a coder for like a company, a creative company, every contract, the first contract usually is a bad contract. But if you're just coming out of school and you're saying, I want to go work in this, I want to be a real person, and I don't want to live in my mom's basement while I'm doing this, you're probably going to sign that contract. And people are saying, well, we're going to quit at this point or whatever type of thing. We'd like to go work for this other people. But projects are not scheduled like one day, tomorrow you're going to start working on this. No, they're scheduled like years in advance, a lot of times months in advance, so that you have the people at that particular time to work on your project. So you can't just like shift and move people around. And so there's a lot of times where, like an example, like Google has this 20% off thing where you work on projects. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah, Google is very exceptional, though, but yeah.
But it doesn't always have to be that way. And so you can develop projects while we're getting ready for the other project. If it's good, it's like a restaurant saying, we'll put it on the menu.
So what's a good game
Most games need a whole lot of distribution. They need some street cred. They need some other things. Because if I go up to even right now, even though that you guys probably all know what RimWorld is, but if you go down the street and you say, do you know what RimWorld is to 100 people? Most of those people won't know what it is. So even though they've made money.
Yeah, what's a good analog? What's a good analog? So
I asked this in the open or the closed panel too.
Yeah.
What's the point of this?
What I'm saying is, games aren't always about making money. They just aren't.
Oh,
some of them just want to make art.
But every
I did not get that from what you said. Let's go to Professor Meat.
That's called a leap.
Hey. So I feel like the first step, if we were going to address, like, I always address these things through like should do, and then once you figure out should do, you figure out what to do. So and in should do, you sort of look at it like, okay, what's the cost benefit analysis of whatever we're kind of trying to change on the spectrum of like more crunch to less crunch, trying to regulate crunch, decrease crunch. Then we can figure out how to do that, right? So if we're trying to figure out whether or not that's good or bad, I'm kind of leaning towards bad, and I'll tell you why. So first, the way I try to evaluate this is I look at like what kind of population we're talking about in terms of the population that's affected by these things. So far from what I'm looking at, it's looking like by 2026, there's going to be about 313,000 game developers, about 314,000 game developers estimated. There are going to be people in the USA that are game developers. And so if we're looking at that population, as far as I can tell, and everyone's welcome to disagree with me on this, as far as I can tell, if the best evidence sort of risk-benefit analysis is that, and someone's welcome to add to this, if the bad seems to be that it is going to become, if we like decrease crunch, to a certain extent, it seems like the risks are that it's going to be riskier to become a developer because you're going to have less security. That's what that was a really good point that the Turks made. People say it's a money thing in the sense that it's a money thing in the sense that they're trying to have security of their money because they can like enforce certain things on workers and try to make sure that they hit certain deadlines and they get certain amounts of money at certain times, et cetera, et cetera. And so this will, if we get rid of crunch, it'll be riskier to dev. There could be less devs. There could be a lower quality. There could be a lot more variety of lower quality games. The less variety of devs could lead to or the less devs could lead to less variety of games. Maybe. Could lead to a lot less lower quality, or that could potentially lead to again just less devs overall because less can succeed. Because at the end, unless we're subsidizing game developers, they're going to have to succeed, right? Now, on the other side, most workers benefit if we minimize crunch. I think we can all pretty much agree to that. Like, it's a small category of workers that genuinely are like benefited by like going 80-hour work weeks or whatever, right? At a certain point, now that's going to change as we go down the scale, but we can agree to that, right? What's
the first example, like increasing crunch, and now you're talking about decreasing crunch?
He's talking about
so all of those were examples of what would be bad if we decrease crunch. Now I'm saying what would be good about decreasing crunch.
Okay.
Yeah. So what would be good is that most workers would benefit, arguably. I mean that like the vast majority of the people in that space would probably benefit overall. Now, I might have miswrote.
What about the other side of the coin? I think
so the people forced out of the industry, they're affected. Yeah, so on the other side, so I guess that loops right, because that's the main benefit, right? That's pretty much the main benefit we're talking about here. There are some others. It could lead to more variety of games. Oh, sorry. The other thing is that we could have, if we get rid of crunch, we could have higher peak games. That someone else said that on the panel. Like, we could leave room open for these masterpieces to flourish and to get these like big, brilliant, shining examples of games, right? And so that's the other benefit, and that could lead to more variety of games. That's across, like that. There's that potential is on both sides. And now, if we're weighing that, we did that. The other side of that is, and I didn't say this explicitly because it's sort of implied, but I will say it explicitly now. The other side of that on harm, on the bad side, is that there would be this small percentage of people that would be forced out of the industry. Now, we do have to consider that across the population. But I do think it's worth considering that some of that harm is going to be minimized by the fact that it's a very small population, and some of these people, we don't know how many, it's speculation, but some of these people are probably going to be pushed into other industries where they can satisfy these insane work ethics that they have.
So let's go to Omni and then Rainbase. And if anyone else. Oh, okay. Then yeah, and Dewey. And Turk.
Okay. So I think crunch is the whole concept of crunch is that it's a failure in production management, right? So you can't get your project finished at this expected date, so you need to work that much harder. I think crunch can the bad side of crunch would be like there's a lot of burnout for developers. There's turnover, but companies nowadays are willing to take that risk because they have a pool of game developers that they can hire and replace. But I don't think getting rid of crunch entirely is necessarily a good thing either, because if you do, you can have a lot of game projects stuck in development hell because they don't have that motivation of finishing a game within a deadline, right? So they could like push a game throughout years and years and years without actually completing it. This is more seen in like smaller indie studios and such, not necessarily in big companies.
Okay. Let's go ahead.
I have first I really liked the point you made, Professor Mead, like well structured. but I couldn't quite follow how you got to like maybe I got it wrong, but you argued that decreasing crunch could lead to more great games and more diversity in games being made. And the way I see it, it's more like the opposite. That crunch is a way for studios to like make up for riskier propositions, and like basically is a way to get riskier propositions funded, because we can like abuse our artists to make up for the risk. Pretty much is the way I think about it.
Right, absolutely. Well, right. That's the other side of it. But I guess just if we're because they're just to be clear, I think that there's a possibility for variety to be increased or decreased both directions. But I think that to be really specific about the way that might be more unique to the like good side of decreasing crunch, I think is that when you increase crunch, you minimize the risks. But I think you sort of it's like a maybe I shouldn't use this metaphor because not everyone's familiar with audio terms, but hey, we're on Twitch. It's sort of like a compressor for ideas in a sense. Like you're peaking the top and you're minimizing the bottom. You know what I mean? You're decreasing your floor and your ceiling to a certain extent.
You increase the ceiling, right? Like you make it possible for like games that couldn't have been made otherwise to be made on the same budget, right?
Well, so what it is, so let me clarify. So to put it in a different way, your ceiling is affected by a multi-factor analysis. And this is what, insofar as we're listing things that are affecting the ceiling and raising the ceiling, decreasing the floor, raising the floor, I would say that there's some ways that decreasing crunch inherently minimizes the ceiling and increases and raises the floor. But what you're sort of talking about is a way that like if theoretically maybe crunch can like sort of lift it can be a rising tide lifting all ships kind of thing, where it just sort of promotes the size and growth and of the game industry so much that games end up being better overall. Maybe is that based?
Before we move on, I also wanted to make my second point. I think I really liked like your lead up into this topic, but I think in addition to the propositions you've made, there's also the other very important question. That one is if crunch happens, which it probably will to a certain degree, whatever degree that is, what can we do to better deal with it, and what can we do to equip professionals with like dealing with crunch? And I think other industries are a lot more mature and a lot better at handling this, like other creative fields especially. And I think gaming as a field could learn a lot from that. Like for example, mental health and awareness in companies, and also a different mindset, like less shitting developers for breaking, but a lot more like helping them back up, I think.
Yeah, so so I don't have many thoughts on this. Can I just respond a little bit and then just pass it on?
Yeah, please. Somebody gotta move on.
Okay. Yeah, just a quick little sentence. I just want to say I don't have too many ideas about the what to do part if we can agree about the what should do, but I do think that I'm not even gonna have thoughts beyond that. So I just want to say that to respond to him, and then it's Turks.
So we still haven't figured out what we should do.
So
I don't know why you shouldn't do unions, I guess, is what I would thinking. Like, I want to hear that. Why shouldn't
you were talking about unions this whole time? Oh, man. Sorry,
okay, that's the meta.
Read the room. So, okay, we got a few people here. Was there. And was it, I think Dewey, and then Turk and Zig.
So, first of all, Professor Meat, I love your voice. I'm gonna follow you right after this because I need to hear more of this regressive analysis, and it's awesome. And I'm gonna agree with everything you say just because I want to hear it.
Bro, you're the man. Become a meathead. I'm inviting you to the Discord. Get ready.
Oh no, okay. I don't know. I'm lamenting these two right here. Doing the thumbs down. I don't agree with that either.
It's okay. So it's okay. It's okay.
Basically, his point was you can talk out of both sides of your mouth and sound good doing it.
Let's go to Dewey.
You can talk out of if.
Well, look at Putin.
Okay, I'm just. When I was 19 years old, it was more comfortable for me to go with 4 guys every day. We would work on code all day, all night.
Where's this going?
Right? Seriously. So we would go Taco Bell. We would take breaks. We would go at 2 o'clock in the morning. At some time, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, we might roll in and I'd get dropped off at my house. Then we'd go up and we code some more. Okay? And this is what kind of like it was for my 20s and good part of 30s. Anyway, so we would.
I was hoping it was gonna go. Sorry, man.
But listen to, I'm talking about crunch.
Yeah.
So anyway,
let him finish, please. Go ahead.
So what happened is that some people got used to that, and then what happened? It's terrible for your own life, like if you want to have a wife, kid, whatever you want to do. But it's great a lot of times for developing intricate code, beautiful self-modifying code that you can be proud of, that only you and a few of your friends would see. It's great for a lot of those types of situations that you have these relationships, and you have different types of relationships, but it's terrible for trying to recruit people into that situation. So the unionization, I think, sucks for that, because I want people that want to be there no matter what, and that the money creeps in is when the union starts. This is more of a professional, artistic type of thing a lot of times. So you're not going to unionize a lot of artists usually into one company, because they're not going to survive that. They're just not. They're not going to strike. They're just going to go, we're going to find some people. A dev right now costs about 100, well, it's like 10 to 20 grand a month right now. That's what a dev costs, a real dev. That's what it is. So if you want to say, why do they need to unionize? Because those other the devs that are really good, because they've got the social network to be in part of that, be hired into that system.
I think it's very important to differentiate between like high quality devs and artists too. Like most of our talk so far has been like mostly the artists that are like easily replaceable and fairly passionate. So like basically they want to be abused and they're easy to abuse, and thus they get abused, and we should stop that in some way.
So let's go to Turk, Zig, and then QB.
Yeah. So Professor Mead, I appreciate like putting numbers towards your arguments and how you base your stance on that. But I do have a problem, because when it comes to crunch, it's a metric of both time and capacity. And what you were saying is, if you have more people or less people, the amount of crunch can both go up or down. But you got to look at it from a end product perspective. If you have more people around that are able to produce a thing, you increase the breadth of your scope, because if you're a manager and you're trying to make a cool project, you acquire more resources to produce this thing. So your amount
like
of
the scale of the that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Maybe I didn't make that clear, but that's what I meant when I said like there's the argument to be made that potentially you can like basically scale the peak of the industry in terms of just resources or something like that, and scale. You might be able to, while there might be this compression effect on the ceiling and floor, there might also be this effect where like a rising tide is lifting all ships at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
That's not the way it will actually work in the end game. Because if you continue to allow more people to jump onto this ship, right, that's going to produce this product, the amount of scope that's going to be going onto this project, Anthem, how many studios actually went into Anthem to produce it, and how bad was it? When you're trying to actually add resources to a limited scope, yes, the amount of crunch gets reduced because you have a defined amount of work you're trying to do. But if you try to add more people, the people start to say, hey, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. Scope creep is a thing, and that's why just by adding bodies to the equation will not solve the problem. You need better time management, to what Prime said in the closed panel, and scooting things out to the left. We need developers, going to what Du said earlier, the coders need to be engaged more actively at the beginning of the product as well as in the middle, and you need your artists to be engaged at the very beginning in order to reduce the amount of wasted time going on in the middle of the project. You could do that without adding any additional resource. All you have to do is have better management and better people guiding the project through its process.
So I just misunderstood you. Yeah, I think that is a definite possibility. I think that we have to weigh the risk of. I think that and it sounds like your solution. I think those are good ideas for solutions that it seems like could accompany other solutions. Doesn't sound like we necessarily have to. We don't have to exclude, but we don't also have to like we don't necessarily have to do one instead of the other. But we don't have to do one instead of the other. And so I guess I would say, to your point, for those particular solutions, do you have any particular ideas about how we can address those bottlenecks?
And I said it in the closed panel. We need better middle management, actually pushing for the programs to actually get delivered and put onto a schedule, not pushing it all towards the end. Like, oh, E3, we just presented this cinematic thing. Let's start making the game now. No, the game should already be in development and code and alpha ready to go before you even get to that point. So it's all down to
yeah, but at that point you're also like
planning in the
risking
industry.
At that point,
right,
you're
but
also,
so
like,
at that
taking
point,
a
it's
lot
just
of risk.
yeah, you need to consider that when you're scaling up, like what the industry can do and the scale of the industry and how much it can accomplish. Like when you're increasing the efficiency of that, you're addressing the problem on one end, but at the other end, anytime you're scaling up the industry, you're also, and its ability to produce products more efficiently, you're also sort of scaling up the
because
the rate
the
at which
people
people
that
are
are
being affected by
actually
crunch.
making the game are enthusiastic on making the game. They want to create the art. They want to create the code. The problem is they're not being actively processed in order to do that thing. So if you actually get some of these managers out of the way and start actually developing the game, you can get the better product.
No, I want to also address that coders are like rotting fruit. So the moment you hire them, as they get to 27, you think I've got a really hot coder. As they get to 33, well, not as much hours likes to get punched every day. Coders are like rotting fruit.
Have you ever seen any documentaries about id Software?
I just know what it's like in real life. I don't know about.
Okay, so your opinion is irrelevant here. So thank
you.
you.
Is my opinion irrelevant?
No. Listen,
that's rich.
Dewey knows. Dewey is 35 years old. Okay, look at what coding has done to him.
Okay.
Let's
go to Zeke. He's been waiting quite patiently. Doobie.
First off, I want to shout out to Turk with the QuakeCon shirt. Hopefully 2022 we get to meet up again. IRL, I'm not sure, but I've been in the industry. I know people in the industry. I know people still working in the industry. There's a lot of truth that's been said on this panel already that has been touched on. I'm just going to touch on a couple things. Ferdy, I know you referred to like artists as being quote unquote like disposable, or you said something like that or whatever. What I've from what I've understood from people in the industry that are working in the industry currently, a lot of the developers are being disposable. They're being brought in when the project starts and when the project ramps up, and then they're being let go after the project is done. Usually they'll keep like a skeleton crew for maintenance, or they'll keep like a small crew for like maintenance and like patching. But most of the developers, I was this too. Most of the developers, fresh out of college, usually under contract a lot of times, or contract workers. And they're only hired on for the span of the project, however long the project is. If it's like 1 or 2 years, if it's a 2-year project, they're hired on for those 2 years and then released after that 2-year period. Mostly, the only people that are kept on are the salaried people that are actually employed with the company, which is mainly makes up maybe 30% to 40% of the developing crew developing the game. This includes artists. This includes graphical designers, artists, level design, everything.
Background people, everybody that comes into.
When I said that, it was like a short remark. We're like basically talking about who we are even talking about. I was referring to an earlier point where we were like talking about people with lots of passion being often abused in those kind of creative industries. That's not just like explicitly artists, but like people that like see the product they're making as art, and thus that see themselves as being like disposable.
That's
to
the
their art,
entire
and also being
industry,
easily replaceable. Yeah,
that's the entire fucking industry, dude.
That was just I was just like trying to get back to that.
But yeah, that's the entire fucking industry. That's the reason I got out of it, is because like I just don't want to deal with that anymore. And like I'm doing
talk about the rotting fruit thing, because you always have to be on the edge. You always have to be studying on one hand, and you work your 16 hours. You come home, you got to be ready to do the next thing. So you got to either become a developer, a project manager, so you don't have to do that. You have to have some art skills. You have to have a lot of things. So you're out of the churn portion, because you'll be chewed up by the churn.
I'm out of it. I'm out of it now. We still kind of have crunch a little bit in the industry that I work in. I work for a financial company. I'm a back-end developer for a financial company. We have some crunch. It's not too bad right now, but like also with crunch is inevitable. It's going to be inevitable. It's going to happen. People obviously abuse it. Companies obviously abuse it. We've seen this. But like It's
Zig,
inevitable if what.
I have a question. When crunch time happens, do you see that as a way for you to get more time, or does it weigh on your mental state?
For me it's motivating. For me it's like, oh, we have a deadline in 3 months. For me, it's motivated for me to get my job done or finish my job.
It
I don't
depends how
mind.
long it goes for. Eh?
Yeah, it also depends on how long it goes for. I don't mind spending 12, 14 hours a day working for 3 months. As long as it's like 6 days a week, I don't mind doing that. But that's just me. For other people, yeah, they probably get stressed and burned out. But for me, like, if I have a deadline in 3 months and I have to get this project done, I don't mind like working
So I actually have a quick question about these.
Are you working in
Case? I know that you want to get in their case. Hold on, I just have a really quick question. Like, these people who are in contract, do they usually have like insurance so that they can actually like go talk to someone? No, so then that fucking sucks. That's stupid. Go ahead, Case. I'm sorry.
Okay, so answer that, and then I gotta go. Doobie, it's waiting.
He already answered. He said no insurance, nothing like that. That's
Okay,
stupid.
all right.
It's like a gig economy.
Doobie.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to pretend to know anything about game development, but isn't what we're describing basically just like, when you have a deadline, people to satisfy, clients to satisfy, right? That are expecting you to be done by that deadline, and something fucks up, right? So your time management's all off, and you need to work really hard to finish this thing before that deadline. Isn't that like, can't that apply to like any industry?
No.
Like whether it's journal, why not? Why is it different
Because
than what like
you're
journalists have to
assuming
do
that-
if they need to
okay.
get something to the editor
Because-
by like the end of the night? So they're
No,
up
no,
like
no, 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 no,
16
no, no, it
hours
doesn't
working on
work
this
like
fucking
that.
thing.
No,
Why not?
Because you're not working on something and then suddenly iOS does an update and now you have to restart what you're doing. You're not working on something where, hey, John. Well, John didn't document his code, and guess what? They pissed John off, and John's not coming into work, and with our systems are locked for a while. We're gonna have a meeting. Wait a second, we don't have very much time. We're gonna have 3 meetings. The client insists that we have a meeting with the coders and people like that. No, you don't. No, and
Again, that sounds like every other fucking industry.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. Maybe it's because you're in game development, right? So you want to be the victim, and you're pretending that other industries don't also do this shit. But I'm sure people in journalism do that. I work in insurance, and I have to do that kind of shit sometimes when the client needs something out of fucking nowhere, and suddenly I have to fill out 50 fucking forms, and it all has to be done by the next day, and I need to be up all fucking night, right? Yeah, sometimes the rules do change in insurance, right? The rules change in lots of industries. Right? Sometimes things change, and if your time isn't managed properly, if you fucked up, or you just weren't expecting totally out of the blue, someone was sick that day or whatever the fuck, you might need to work extra hours, right? If a big opportunity pops up and you really want to get that opportunity, well, shit, you need to work extra hours a week to get that opportunity. I don't see how this is this isn't exactly what we're talking about with game dev. Right, so maybe it's the case that with game dev, like because they're working with deadlines, like lots of other industries, if shit goes wrong, right, they're gonna need to work really hard toward the end to make, because they weren't managing their time properly or some shit, right? Maybe stuff like that happens, but I don't see how this is any different.
Hey, dude, I feel like that sort of stuff happens more in industries where you're working with professionals who are like have a specific
specialized skills.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. But you can't, like a plumber, you're not gonna. There's no time crunch unless you're working for like a city or something, and a sewer line broke or something.
No, I don't think so. If you're like a plumber, and you've agreed to replace the pipes in this house by this date, and that the homeowner is expecting to be able to move back into their home and live there by the next day, right? And something goes wrong, maybe you put in the wrong pipe, maybe something broke, maybe whatever, right? Oh shit, you might need to work through the entire night to get it done. Otherwise, that homeowner is going to sue the fuck out of you. Otherwise, you need to spend a lot of money to make them happy.
I want to give at least one example. Like, I'm sure you've seen highways being built and people just standing around doing nothing, right? There's got to be at least one example where you're wrong. So that's can you?
Yeah, okay, but I'm sure there are lots of game devs who don't do the crunch time all the fucking time, right? Where nothing goes wrong, where it's not that complex, and they can get it done without any issues.
It's called the cycle of product development.
Yeah, pretty much. I think we can all say like the general concept of crunch can be seen throughout all the different industries, but It's just differs compared to whatever industry you're in. So we have a lot of different extenuating circumstances when we're a game developer compared to like plumbing and all that stuff. But the general concept of crunch is there for everything.
I think.
So
I
don't see why we're speaking as. Oh, go ahead. Zig.
I think the general concept of crunch is a positive. Like, but the thing is, crunch, the way it's been used recently, and the way it's been used in the media and been portrayed in the media, and the way it's been used by these companies is a negative. But like to me, I think crunch overall can be a positive. Like me, like if
motivation,
like I said earlier, if there's a deadline in 3 months and like I had to get this stuff done by the 3 months, it's for me it's a motivation thing. Like I if I have a firm deadline that hey, I'm going to have consequences if I don't get this stuff done in 3 months, for me it's motivation. So
do you think that's because you kind of like have that exceptional level of work ethic, and like would you think that you're like kind of like a minority in the industry where most people might find it more stressful?
Probably. I don't know. I would.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like all my coworkers around me are the same way. So like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think it's more of a company like a company mindset or a mindset within that certain company.
So we've been talking about all of these different things, right? But how can we like talk about maybe ways to fix it, like through regulation or something, or maybe like different
you fix it unionize. That's the easiest way to fix it.
Okay, we just need to have like a there are some things that should be a basic level, like you should, because you have to have a basic level of saying, if you're going to be paying this much money, you should have automatic rights or whatever kind of thing. That because unions because we have right to slave states, which we call right to work states. We have different types of states. A lot of the companies that have fled California, Silicon Valley to come to Utah and Texas because they're trying to get away from the regulations that they're being forced on them. Okay, so we need a federal kind of system. Unions won't work as far as this
cringe
is
again.
concerned.
Like, how do you think unions would fix this crunch issue?
Well, you would have someone who you have the bargaining rights for everyone collectively, and then you can bring that to management, middle management, whoever needs to hear it. These people are hurting, right?
It's got to go lower level than that. You have to have a
union
representative at every single scrum meeting that's managing people and their expectations towards the corporation, and I don't see how that's feasible.
The biggest problem with this is that it's a group of individuals against like corporate, because what corporate's doing with crunch and how they're abusing the developers is it's not that they have like this project planned out and we just need a crunch and they just need a crunch at the end to finish the project. They're trying to maximize the efficiency and trying to get more and more projects out. So how they're abusing crunch is that they're trying to get as many projects out as possible, the most efficient time as possible, and that's leading to like longer and longer crunches. We can see this in Naughty Dog's Last of Us 2, how they crunched and how like they have a really high turnover rate with game developers, and yeah.
Zig, you and Turk kind of said something interesting at the same time. Maybe you can kind of help me out here, because you had said earlier, not saying that this is what you believe fully, but you said the only way to fix the issue is unionize, and then you and Turk both agreed that it wouldn't go to middle management as far as that level. It would have to go lower. Like, why do you think? Is it because these issues are more on those like higher turnover employees that are kind of like
the issue would be on the higher turnover employees, because what inevitably happens is in most cases you get hired on. You're working 16-hour days. You're working 16-hour days, 6 days a week. Maybe even called on your day off to work because hey, you need to get this thing done, and and you wanna work on it because you love working on it. You love this project, right? You love what you're doing.
These are typically younger folks too, right?
Yeah, they're typically younger, typically fresh out of college, super passionate, super driven, right?
Right.
They want to impress the bosses because they're on a contract and they want to get hired on full time with the company. That's never going to happen. That's never fucking going to happen in the first place.
So that's the.
So Turk, would
Go
you
ahead,
help?
Zig.
Do you? Oh, go. Sorry.
No,
but
no.
but
Go
if
ahead,
we
Zig.
but that's where the union stuff comes in. If these up and comers have the union backing them, or like a union person backing them,
right,
and preparing them and helping them through like the mental health stuff that they have to go through, people mentally break by working 60-hour days, six days a week. Trust me.
So I gotta let some more people in. So we have Professor Meat, and then Rain, and then Turk. Okay.
I was directly requested by Redhead on that.
Okay, sure. Go ahead. And then Meat and Rain.
So if we assume 70% are contract workers and they are in this union, right? So they go into their morning meeting where they start to talk about priorities and stuff. And if they are overloaded in crunch, and one of the stipulations within the union is that XYZ criteria happens, you have to engage.
Falls into place, right?
So the scrum meeting stops. We're not allowed to talk until the union representative comes in and actually negotiates what this proportion of the workers are able to actually do. So you would need union representation by the union, not just, hey, I'm part of the union, I can speak for everyone. You got to have the union representative at every flippin' production meeting every day for all of these different projects across the industry.
Well, that would work. It would work the same way, because I feel like we can extend an olive branch between you and I, at least as far as like, don't you think what we could do, at least what we did in the Marine Corps, is we're going to interact with those more senior people, as far as like in a middle sense, because you were talking about how it seems to be a very big level of disconnect from the lower to the higher, right? So what we would end up. At that
point, you don't need a union. You need better people driving teams.
Sure, but.
You don't need a union.
So you wouldn't feel like just because these middle guys, you think that middle representation would be more effective? You need your
sergeant saying that my guys are overstressed. We can't hike another mile. We have to focus on the stuff we've committed to do.
Right. Good to go.
And the corporal or whatever going up has to be able to propagate that towards their lieutenants and all that stuff and be like, we can't deliver this.
Right,
and that has
but it
to
seems
be
like this is not. It seems like this is not happening in the industry, right? So, like, what is that? But this is constant. As
the
far
problem
as,
is, and we talked about this in the closed panel. C-level execs and marketing people override this stuff. So it's like your engineering team can say the product's not ready to ship, but the marketing people in the C levels say it is, and that's why we have the CD Projekt Red example, and we have all these other. Battlefield 2042.
That's exactly what happened with CD Projekt.
Do you guys mind if I just say goodbye really quickly? Bye, everyone. I appreciate Prime. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for everyone. Like next week, I'm gonna be doing 24-hour stream. Elden Ring, let's go.
Have a good one. So you wouldn't see because if you're telling me that the problem is that higher up, if it's the colonel sitting here and saying, hey, you're going to get this shit done, you don't feel a union representation that can sit there and say, no, this isn't going to fucking work like that. You're going to have to start doing some better time management and shit
the problem
beforehand.
The problem at that level is the union representative doesn't cover everyone downstream. He only covers certain people in certain aspects.
Yeah,
you could have a person like Zigmover that's like, dude, I'm motivated. I want to deliver this product.
Right.
Team captain, I'm good to go. But then you've got this union contract guy that has to go through all the other chains of union contract guys that's stalling up the production. So it's like, no, you don't need the unions in this case. You just need more competent leadership within your organization.
But wouldn't it be sufficient if I had like a union representative I could talk to if I'm being crunched too hard, and then I had some external person to talk to who could then
if you talk to like your boss being crunched too hard, they're going to be like, okay, take a couple, maybe take a break, like take an hour break.
You realize how many different
that's why we need unions.
No, you would need this many more union representatives in individual department meetings.
But why? The union is just like the union can in this case the union can just represent the issues and troubles the workers are having. But instead of forcing the workers to individually go to their boss and tell them, hey, sorry, boss, I'm really tired. I can't come to work tomorrow because I have a burnout, which is very stigmatized and which is not easy to talk about in our work culture. Wouldn't it be a lot better if we had like non-company structures, external structures that people can like go towards and talk to And
Well,
like that, I don't see what's the issue.
So
with
help
that.
me
I don't
figure
see what
this
it
out,
would-
because I feel
what-
like you're
It's like
telling me that
bitching.
just make things better. Like you need better leaders. Congratulations. Yeah.
No,
of
no,
course
yeah,
you
but
need
This is
better
we would
do you
never get.
think-
We would never randomly get better
Can
leaders.
I think
and
No, no,
that's
no.
So-
I'm
that we
talking
should-
to Turk.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
talking to Turk,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you're telling me,
Mhm.
and trust me, I 100% believe in fucking great leadership, but you're telling me we need better leaders. The process is not allowing those better leaders to have the level of influence to those people that are determining at that higher level, right? They're just like, okay, you can't lead, we're going to fire you. And then it,
what's
Well, yeah,
happening?
well, there's
No.
another
hold
another
on, let
aspect.
Turk answer. Hold on, let Turk.
And
answer.
what's happening is you're seeing
Okay, Prime.
companies delaying releases of games like the
Right.
next Call of Duty, Diablo 4, Overwatch 2, all these other Activision Blizzard games are getting delayed because their leadership teams are leaving for other companies and other opportunities.
So
it's
you
like,
feel like the industry is self-correcting then?
to an effect, but it's also
Okay.
got external factors of legal stuff that's going on as well. So it's like the corrective action is occurring. I wish more people would stand up within their own development teams and stand up for the team as itself.
So let's
and
go
sometimes
to
that's an individual problem.
let's go
Blizzard,
to
like, just
let's go to
crash and
meet.
burn?
Let's go to meet. And then Rain, and then is it Omni? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, so
Doobie?
Turk, I just wanted to ask a few questions because I'm trying to understand. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand something. So you said someone said like, how do we do this? And you were like, well, some people do it already, right? Am I correct?
Yes, there are certain teams that
Yeah,
within the
it's self-correcting.
agile that within the agile framework actually go and actually defend their own teams. Yes.
Well,
I am
but
one of
well,
those.
sure, but yeah, regardless of whatever framework, you're basically saying there are examples, maybe Agile being one of them, of people, like basically people getting better leadership, more informed leadership, or whatever in these positions where they can influence these changes, right?
Yep.
So now, but that's now the problem, though, if I'm understanding correctly, is that it's not enough right now. So you would basically suggest that we should try to regulate some kind of that kind of effect, right? We should regulate and institute that kind of effect somehow.
Probably not. No.
All right. So then, are you suggesting that we don't do anything to solve it?
No, as an individual, I would love to help propagate and push forward my team in being successful, and I would stand up for my team at the betterment of my team. And unfortunately,
So then, are you saying then that the best and only solution in your mind is that we should just put out rhetoric that promotes a culture of trying like just promotes that kind of inclination in that environment, the work environment?
From a development perspective, yes, as developers, we need to be standing with one another and saying, corporate structure, you're pushing us too hard. We can't deliver what you're wanting us to deliver. I'm not going to do it. And we need more of that.
Okay.
And that's
But on the
union,
other
right?
side,
just
we
say-
need consumers to also be part of this and say, Battlefield 2042 sucked. I want my money back. Diablo 3 sucked. I want my money back. And we got to start pushing on all angles because a lot of people are saying, oh, we're just going to keep printing money. Brr. No. As consumers, we have protections. We can tell these people, I'm not going to buy your product. I want my money back. That's why you see a lot of these other games starting to get delayed more, and they're starting to listen more, except for the NFTs with Ubisoft. So
NFTs with everything.
I don't think that's. I just don't see why we should do that at the exclusion of all else.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's multifaceted, and I just don't think unionization is going to address the problem. It's just going to add complexity to the equation, and it's going to make it worse.
But telling everyone to just get better
How's it gonna
doesn't
make it
fix
worse?
anything.
Yeah, that's my basic grind.
if
Also,
you're with-
you have to understand that.
Hold on, before you do, we got a few people in line. So Rain Base, do you want to say something, and then if Turk respond, and then Doobie, and then Dewey.
First, I have one short intersect. I wanted to say that like 10 minutes ago. But I think when we're talking about like eliminating crunch in gaming, it's very important to like think about why we're even talking about this. Like crunch is happening in all kinds of industries. It seems to be happening especially when we have a labor force that's that has low power, like low agency. That's in cases where like the jobs are well paid and there's lots of competition for the jobs, or in cases where the jobs are like passionately sought after and there's lots of competition for the jobs. I think gaming or like gaming dev, software dev is like especially gaming dev is one of those intersects where we have like jobs that are both relatively well paid and passionately sought after by many young people. So maybe the issue there is a bit stronger, but I think it's important to like when we talk about solutions, and to think about why these solutions are like important for gaming as a like for game development specifically, and which of those are like just generally good in order to improve workers' rights. Like unionization is like just a generally good thing for workers anywhere, because if I have a person that like can stand up for my interests, I would probably have like my rights represented in better ways. But I think like for all the solutions, it's important to think about like why do they apply here, and do we even talk about them in the topic of gaming, of the gaming space. And back to the topic like we were at right now, I just don't see how there's any complexity being added by like giving workers rights, except like that of course workers with more rights have like more ways to disrupt the process if they're being mistreated, but that's like a good thing, right? Like I just don't see why you're thumbing down the take that like we can just like if workers aren't being heard, we don't need our scrum managers to like represent our interests, but we need like us as workers to like band together and have someone out of the company represent our interests.
So we, in every development team, we need a representative of the guild in there to stop everything and say, hey, this isn't part of the contract.
Okay.
Why would we need that? It would be enough to have like someone who can anonymously forward my complaints, for example. Like,
because if I'm going into my scrum meeting and I said, you know, Rainbay, did you deliver your product you said you were going to deliver yesterday? And you say, no, I was under crunch. I said, okay, why didn't you do that? And then you say, oh, I got to get my union guy. I can't do it. You just
That's not how you.
Come on. Then, no, dude, if you're feeling crunched and you're not feeling that you're actually getting your end of what the union's defending you for, you have to go and get help from your union contact, right?
Wait, are we
that's part of the contract.
We're talking about crunch time, like time to develop a game, right? That's still what we're talking about, right?
This is the daily meeting where I go and talk and say, hey, did you deliver what you said you were going to deliver yesterday? And you say, no, I was under crunch and I couldn't do it. And then I say, okay, why not? And at that point, you're like, well, I can't do it. This is under my union contract. Talk to my union guy.
But wouldn't the guy that's asking you for the project say, dude, everyone's under crunch, right? You're not the only one, right? Wouldn't that be like a correct response from that person?
That would assume everyone in the department is under the same union and is working under the exact same terms of the contract.
But if you're working for the same,
we have
company,
more segmented unions.
You would be under the same union.
If that's the way it's structured, then sure, there is no extra complication there. But that's not the way these development teams work, guys.
Let's. We got a few.
Guys, I'm gonna hop off. I'm gonna hop off. I'm gonna fuck off and go play Horizon Forbidden West. Thanks for having me on the panel.
Have a good one.
Let's go
Thanks,
to.
Zig. Love to see you again.
Okay, all right. Let's go to Omni then Doobie.
So I think the idea is the question is not crunch good or bad. I think it's more to do with how do we stop the abuse of crunch, as like how to like stop the abuse of crunch, right? So I think maybe not unions, but what do you guys think of having a rule where we set a maximum amount of hours worked or something per week, say? Because crunch, how people are abusing crunch now is like they assume like the workers have like infinite numbers of hours that you can just squeeze out of them, and that's what's generating a turnover rate so much. So what do you think about limiting hours per week?
I think that would be like a federal. Here's two problems that I have right away. One is because go around your room and see how many geniuses you have in your room, right? And if you have to ask you who's the geniuses, it's not you. Okay. Two, this is not the same. Many of these people have very bad social skills. Okay. And you might be very cool. Some coders have good social skills, but many of them don't. They're not going to be able to do. And when somebody comes into their face a few times and says, why didn't you get your work done? Then I got to go have that guy go down the hall with me. I give him a Coke. He gets to smoke a cigarette for a moment. And then we don't have an incident. We don't have an incident. Because you have to understand, this is not like, for many people, this is not the very best people. They're not used to this type of direct hands-on management. Okay. We just say, tell me what the problem is. and they can't figure out the math. Sometimes it's math. Sometimes it's this or that other thing, okay? Sometimes they just broke up with their girlfriend. But guess what? That stuff where he's doing right there will get people to walk. And that we can't have people walking when we're 6 months in a project. We can't have somebody relearning code for 3 weeks. It's not an interchangeable brick a lot of times. Yes, Red, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, man. Keep talking. Go ahead.
So how does this relate to
you do your radical straight up management stuff, right? That means that and you know what? Genius doesn't happen on a clock a lot of times. It just doesn't. Just because you come into work, look, I told somebody they wanted me to come into work at 8 o'clock in the morning. I says, that's fine. You can have me come in, but code doesn't start till 10 a.m., you know? And maybe not start until afternoon because I'm tired. So he says, but you can't do that. I says, oh, yes, I can. And none of my people will start work until 10 o'clock either. But I'll tell you what if we worked it from 10 o'clock? We came in whenever we wanted to. We worked to 3 o'clock in the morning, and I got my project in 6 weeks ahead of time, and we had no meetings. Not one goddamn meeting, right? We're not having any meetings. The only meetings they're going to have with me is at Taco Bell. That's the only meeting we have. And I buy coffee, and we bring in lunch, and we have catering service, and we have parties, whatever we want to do, but we're getting our code done on time. How about that one? And we're going to have a really nice project, and we're going to get everything done before you even thought about it. We're going to probably have half of the code done over the weekend if you just leave us the hell alone and don't do this stuff to us. Okay?
Okay, so I posited the idea of putting a rule to reduce crunch and the abuse of crunch by limiting maximum hours a week. So how the heck does that relate to that? I'm just trying to figure it out.
You have to have a federal rule because one of the things is that the only way to execute that would be on a federal basis because every state is different and you will get people fired and then you'll make people have upheaval in their lives depending on what state laws change.
You just said you're self-regulated. You laid down the law. I don't code till 10. I'm going to deliver this product if you leave me alone. You don't need a federal regulation, man.
Let's go to Doobie and then Dustin and Kamikaze. And then Snakes.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you guys. It sounds like cope. Like if you don't want to do the hours, like don't have the job. Like get another job. Like if you can't handle a job where shit breaks sometimes and you need to work long hours to fix it, like go work at a fucking elementary school or something. Like I really don't understand like why you guys are going in circles talking about all the things you could do to make this industry just a little bit better for these poor game developers. Like some industries are hard, right? But these people make lots of money when it goes well. So like, what's all this like bitching and crying that you guys are doing?
I mean, sometimes
I think the problem. Oh no, go ahead.
Sometimes it's like 80 or 120 hour weeks for like multiple months.
Yeah,
right?
plenty of industries have 80 to 100 hour weeks when shit's breaking and you need to work really hard to fix the thing that's breaking. Like, you can't do it. Get out of the fucking industry. Like,
you may not know how to make the answer happen.
Making the money. You're the developer for a company making the money. You're not getting like all this overtime. And even if you do, it's still like a massive
don't work for that
strain on
company.
mental health.
Go, work a year on an indie game or something.
I think we'd much rather live in a world where we have like video games being created by people who don't kill themselves once they're done making those video games. Would be really great.
I'd much rather live in a world where my video game comes out on time, even if they need to work 90 hours a week to make it happen. Okay.
In Rainbay,
that's the world I'd rather live in.
Rainbay,
do you realize that maybe
that you support From Software? You're going to buy Elden Ring. The company that makes that game is known for these exact same practices that you are saying we shouldn't be advocating for.
And that's why I think we should talk about those practices.
Dude.
Like, yeah, dude, like people that develop, like Japanese developers, when they're in crunch, they stay in their fucking offices, like practically living there. Like
killing themselves.
Yeah, like
they jump out of windows all the time.
Go get another job if you can't handle the work.
They have to put bars on the windows.
It's not about. It's like I'm just like it's not about them not being able to handle.
It absolutely. If they're jumping out of the windows, obviously they can't handle the situation. Right?
Wait,
so,
I never should have
done demonstration. Go start your own indie game development company and make shitty games that nobody plays.
Let's go to oh my god. Let's go to Dustin and then Kamikaze.
Look, just to kind of start off at the top level, we can only fix what we can here in America if we're all Americans, right? So I don't give a shit what other practices are happening over there. Just to sit here and pretend like, hey, it works in this other country. Hey, fucking, I can't fix that. I can only fix here. So to sit here and pretend like there's not abuses as far as like at this low level, we already all agreed upon that as far as like the churn and the kind of like the lower level, younger attaboy employees. That's the problem that we're trying to address here. As far as like a federal law, look, I'm a Democrat, so I'm a pretty big federal guy, but I think we kind of lost our way as far as like we need this law. The most effective way is the lowest level possible as far as like where you find your leadership. And the best way that it seems to work in this day and age is by unionizing. I don't want the federal government coming in here and counting hours because all of a sudden a game developer doesn't want to allow people a voice in how they're treated at work. Like, it's very problematic. I guess I'm a little confused as far as like the difference between what you're saying, Turk, and kind of what I'm saying, other than like it's a pretty anti-union stance that you have, which is completely fucking fine. I understand that, but it feels like if you're that guy that's filling that role, it doesn't seem too much different from a union rep, other than the fact that you're easily replaceable from that CEO level. And I don't think that's anything that you're going to be able to kind of disconnect from, because it seems like you actually give a shit about the people you work with, and you're not a union rep. And it seems like it's working for you, but it's not working for these people with this problem.
All right, yes. Kamikaze?
I'm just trying to figure out, when you say federal regulating Omni, are you talking about just for the gaming industry, or are you talking about regulating for crunch time as a whole?
I think I was just talking about the gaming industry. Yeah.
It just seems a little silly to make one law for one specific industry when we're talking about this issue occurs
we were just
as a whole.
ideas, like,
I'm just throwing the idea out there, right? Like,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
what do you guys think?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand because
I wouldn't know like all your different like federal laws and stuff
everywhere, and I know we were talking about just gaming. But okay, what about medical? The reason we have crunch time often isn't a low-level problem. It's a high level as well. Specialists. You can't replace those specialists. So that's a national security issue. What if something goes down and it's global? What are you going to do? Are you saying, oh, we federally regulated these laws, or even it's required? Transplant doctors, they're rare. They're not as common as you think. They have to work 16 hours on a lot of these surgeries. So say there's 7 transplants to happen in that week, they have the crunch time. This happens in every industry. So I just don't understand why we're trying to say the gaming industry is so damn special. That's really just confuses me.
Because the gaming industry is a weird intersection of both fairly well-paid labor and creative labor. And the products being created by gaming development are not only like purely financial products, but also are like artworks or like works of art that we all enjoy, and we should probably like all work towards preserving and probably also supporting the creators. I think there's a very clear difference there.
Yeah, but you can support them by pre-ordering the game or some shit, right? But if I pre-order the game and they extend the release date by 2 months because they don't want to do crunch time, hey, fuck them, right? Maybe I'll go get another game.
Well, fuck you. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Probably won't, but.
Debbie, are you saying like you're fine? Like your point is like either deal with it or like get the fuck out of the industry to like the developers?
Yeah,
is that, like,
there are plenty of industries that have much longer hours, even like on average, right? So with video game devs, this tends to happen like toward the release date of the game, right? As they get closer, something fucks up and they might need to work fucking 12-hour days sometimes, right, to fix it, and they might need to work 6 days a week or 7 days a week to get it done by the deadline. There are lots of industries where it's the norm to work 70 hours a week, right? That's like the average. Right? So if you can't handle those hours, don't get into that industry. Like I really don't understand.
But the difference is that most of these industries are like being well paid because they're pretty shit jobs. And if they weren't being well paid, people wouldn't do them. But for gaming, it's like one of those industries where people do them because they actually like their jobs or because they want to create art. Well,
not all the time.
Do do you think the
and they're well
factor
paid.
of
let's
That's
be real,
not
they're
what we're
well
talking
paid.
about. We're talking about the abuse because most of
Yeah.
these problems happen at that lower level. So you're not getting well paid. You're not well
So,
paid.
what lower level are you talking about?
Junior dev.
Do you think so? Do you think like
Wait,
if
hold
we
on,
have the
what
corporate
low
element of-
level are we talking about?
Junior developer.
Junior developer. Okay.
Right.
like
Like
just
you-
at the developer level in general?
Yeah, the guy's probably.
It seems like at
25,
least what I was
30
going
an hour.
off of was what kind of Zig had informed us of, as far as like it looks like they're taking advantage out of. I don't think advantage is necessarily a fair representation, because if you go to a big dev industry, it does seem like you do have a fair amount of credentials, and it looks like you put in the work. For example, like going to work for Blizzard still seems to have some
Cachet.
some weight behind it. But the problem and the issue is, and this is not happening all across the board, it seems to be happening in a small minority of people that don't have and are specifically put in this type of employment because they're easily replaceable, and they are very enthusiastic in their work. And I would say, from my perspective, that would be a problem.
Okay, so the average wage of a junior dev, right, at Blizzard is $72,905.
I don't know if that's the
that's
you would have to
pretty. That's according to Glassdoor, which is usually pretty accurate. But junior devs
Yeah.
generally, right?
Depending on the
California
area that you
average
live,
salary
though.
for a junior developer is $88,000. Right,
Yeah,
so
but
these
what
people
about
are pretty
their
well
living?
paid,
It's
right? So
60
yeah,
and
these people
70.
are
Well, no,
don't say the
it's
cost
got- it's
Not
gotta
a lot
be
of money
relative.
for a
$88,000.
degree.
You can
It's
buy with
gotta be
far less
relative,
than $88,000 in California. Stop it, okay? That's not cost. That's not gonna fucking barely scraping by with the cost of living. It's just not.
Have you
So
looked at some of the areas
I live in
specifically around
California.
Blizzard?
$5,000
I live in
a month.
California. Okay,
Here
you
in
have to fucking
Austin.
drive an hour to work. I've been driving an hour to work, and I make way more than $88,000 a year. Right? Like it's totally fine. Not a
He
big
suffered,
deal.
so everyone else
Right?
has to suffer. Good
So
fucking
okay, so
point,
please, it's
buddy.
not suffering. I like the drive. It's totally fine. Right? So I don't understand. These people are well paid. Right? They're getting into an industry that they know has a tendency to require crunch time to meet with deadlines. The crunch time comes up, and then they bitch about it. Like, just don't get into the industry. Go do something else. I don't
I
understand.
think you're
Start an
missing
indie,
good pieces
start
of
an indie
information,
developer
though.
team with Omni here, right? Oh, I'm sorry, not with a Dewey here, and he'll pull you over and buy you a Coke once in a while when you get really upset. Right? Do that. Right? Don't work at Blizzard.
So here in Austin, for a software developer with ZeniMax Media, Bethesda, id Software, and all that,
right? Yeah,
$70K, which is if that's a small amount here in Texas, I don't know what to tell you guys. It's not like they're suffering.
I don't know if we're specifically talking about junior developers. Are those the ones with this high level churn?
That's what you said.
That is not what I said. I said
Junior developer.
Suggested it because he wasn't sure.
I'm talking about the people that Zig had said and we agreed upon seem to be the people being taken advantage.
Contract employee.
You said low level, then I said, okay, what do you mean by low level? And you guys said junior dev.
There's
another low level.
Okay, but the point is that they aren't explicitly suffering from low pay, but they're suffering
Activision
from
here in
very
Austin,
poor working conditions.
$67K.
They're suffering from long hours, which lots of industries have. Like this is sitting in a fucking office in front of a computer, working long
80K.
hours. Oh god, so terrible, right? The plenty of industries where they're breaking their back working the same fucking hours. If you can't do the work, don't do the work. Right? Just go to another industry.
$80K.
Let's go to snakes, and then
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons that I didn't hear discussed, and I missed the other panel, and like most of this panel, is the funding model for games actually really encourages this type of problem. Essentially, you get somebody to fund your game, and they say, I'm going to give you this large amount of money, and then that money starts to run out. And that's what happens, and that's what starts generating the crunch time. And the problem is that never jives with any type of engineering. You never really know when a software engineer project is going to be essentially finishable. And so what happens is, as you get closer to that money running out, you start chopping off pieces, and that also potentially spoils other parts of things, and it actually generates a fairly large amount of work. And that sort of always bamboozles everybody. And so I think I think I would agree with Turk in that we need more authoritative software engineering leads that can anticipate these types of problems and understand these types of problems. But I would also agree that having just a union rep that's like not necessarily required to be involved with the project outside of the company to be able to, who is an engineer who can also discuss this stuff with CEOs is good, because union reps are under no pressure of being fired, right? Union reps, when you go to your union rep, you get some level of anonymity, and it's not like you're starting like a revolt or you're saying that we're not going to finish the project or anything like that. So it may be a better way to handle these sort of things. So I would support unionization in most cases, as long as it's not super intrusive.
I like his.
Can I just say something really quickly?
In most contracts, they have something called against binding arbitration. So you can't go to court with people. So you have to go through this binding arbitration, and there's a lot of problems with that. And also, you have to realize
the contract.
When you're starting with this kind of industry, if you want a job, you're going to sign that bad contract. You probably
okay.
are.
Well, then you agreed to the terms of the contract. Why are you bitching about it later? Like
No,
either
it's bitching.
sign the contract,
We just really said if
right?
good
Sign the
video games
contract
don't
and
get
deal with
made.
it, or
We
don't sign
wanna
the
play
contract and
good
go do something
video
else.
game.
And I gotta point something because people were saying in chat, oh, you can't. So I think someone said you can't even rent a closet, right, in the city that Blizzard is in for $88,000 a year. Blizzard's in Irvine. It's not that far from where I am right now. I just looked up really quickly, just double check. Took me like 2 minutes to find studio
Buddy, we're
apartments.
talking about games, not
for
about you
rent,
right now, right?
for rent, $600 a month in Irvine, right? So don't push around this fucking myth that you can't find apartments in these cities. You absolutely can, and it's not that expensive.
You're 100% going to get shot in that apartment, by the way.
Yeah.
In Irvine? Irvine's a pretty nice city.
Yes.
I've actually been to Irvine.
Not the $600 part of Irvine.
Definitely not.
Wait, what's the $600 part of Irvine?
The part you just mentioned?
Irvine's not that big a city. Like, I think it's pretty. I think you're fine if you're living in Irvine. It's a pretty nice place. Low crime rate.
I was just making a witty comment.
You're pushing the myth that if you're living somewhere cheap in Irvine, you're gonna get shot. So you need to make that sacrifice if you want to be a game dev and pay like a reasonable rent in the city. It's just not true.
You need to.
I apologize.
I forgive you.
If you're going to have, there's other considerations too. It's like, I want to have family, whatever else, and so really,
as a junior dev,
yeah, it's like usually $25 an hour. There's things that you say. There's different levels. There's the guys that you say that you're showing on Glassdoor. Then there's the guys that are bringing on, and they're just getting a contract, and they're just trying out, okay, and they're just barely above interns. And then they see this culture start going around, and then you kind of have to be there. And if you cause any problems, they're gonna fire you, and they're gonna fire your boss. It's a bad situation.
Well, shit, don't cause problems if you get hired on as a contractor. What the fuck are you saying? If you cause any, why would you get hired somewhere as a contractor to try out?
So
hold on, why would you go on somewhere hired on as a contractor? Yeah. Right, and then cause problems. Like, don't fucking cause problems.
Do we know that you're
this is how you cause problems.
Guy and you hate your life.
I'm not coming in on Sunday because I'm going to church this week.
And this thing you just said, Dewey, you said, junior dev guys usually paid about $25 an hour, barely above interns. That's $4,000 a month. That's pretty good. That's pretty good money in the United States. What are you saying? You're fucking like, oh my God. Like literally, like white collar, first class.
Okay, so how much student loans do that person probably
These are very comfortable jobs, 90% of the time, right? $4,000 a month. Lots of people in the United States would kill for that, right? And you're on here talking about how that's barely above an intern. If that's barely above an intern in this industry, that's pretty fucking good.
I'm so glad we had the expert on software development, Doobie, here to explain this all to us, to all of our software developers.
He programmed the frog, all right?
All right, no one knows.
That's right.
There's some technical skill.
Good job.
Damn. He's been
he even
staring
gets to move
this whole time.
His fins too.
Well, it's really nice that you only programmed a frog and not a game, because frog's fucking ugly and I wouldn't play with it.
Yeah.
Also,
no, Mr. Artsy, video games are art. Video games are tools that people use to make money. Okay, that's it. They're just trying to make money. It's not art. People don't really get that much
for like 3 hours now.
Yeah, we did. And it was everything you said was really dumb about how creating art is like your self harm and all this nonsense. It's not.
Can I address
they want to
what
make
you're
money.
saying?
They do make lots of money apparently.
So let's go to Snake so you can address a bit, then me, and then
okay. So the main thing that I think you're really missing, and like even if I grant all your arguments, this would still stand, right? Is that we actually need these low-level software developers to become high-level soft developers to make good games. If we keep churning new people in and out of the industry, the quality of games never increases. The pace of game development never increases because senior software developers are easily worth 10 junior developers, right? And it's double or maybe sometimes triple the salary of a junior dev, but they're easily worth 10 of those guys because one of these really good devs saves everybody so much work. And so we need these people to level up and not get destroyed by the industry if we want good games.
Maybe I'm like out of the loop or something. But I play lots of video games. I always play lots of video games.
Yeah, that's
it's been my experience. It's been my experience, right, that over the years they've actually gotten much better, right? Even with the crunch time, even with all the bitching that's been going on, right? I can do way more shit in my video games now than I could 20 years ago. Right, so I don't know. Maybe there's like a crisis I'm not aware of people falling out of the game industry and all the games going to shit, right? But I just don't see it. What I see is games getting better every year. You're doing more shit in video games every year.
And there's
and
a
looking
reason
much better
why
every
we
year.
value senior devs more, because they actually provide the additional value to a project to get the quality up to a standard, and they direct the teams that produce the quality. So it's like, yes, as a junior dev, you're not expected to create the masterpiece, but you are providing some of the building blocks to help make this masterpiece. So instead of saying, oh, 25 an hour is not good enough, I need more. It's like, dude, you take your time, you work through it, you get through the project, you make a name for yourself, you go to a couple different companies as a contract worker, maybe you come salaried at another dev industry. That's the way this industry works. And if you're just going to be defeatist about it and say, oh, good 25, you're not going to make it in this industry, and you're just going to go develop like accounting software somewhere.
Well, I feel like that's not exactly what we're kind of talking about here. I don't think, at least, nobody's saying like I should immediately be right at the top. Like, you got to put the time in. I don't think you're going to find any industry, especially from a unionized standpoint, that's like, oh, you're fucking just fresh out of school? Well, welcome to the top. Come on up. Like, a lot of these things, what we're trying to do and what we're trying to address, and again, maybe we're just talking about Blizzard here, or that's the example that I know best about. I don't know a lot about the gaming industry as a whole. It seems like we are losing so many of these people at the lower end, and it's causing so many other problems outside of just pay. It's causing a pretty shit environment as far as like being able to lurk, and then it's making that environment is only going to make it harder for the minority people in that industry. So I don't know if we're. Go ahead.
Wait, are people just like?
No, let me go, Doobie. So to go what Rainby was saying earlier, that many of these game developers, artists, are doing it from passion, right?
Yeah, sure.
They should be doing the passion while also going through the grind of the entire industry. It's not just this is real life, guys. It's not just, oh, I just graduated, I'm going to make a lot of bank. It's like, no, you got to put the work in. You got to actually do
again, I just said that. We don't disagree on that part. That's not what I'm talking about. That's
like, obviously you have
I don't
to
know if
work, but we should try to like keep people like in healthy working conditions and have them like be productive. Like what are you talking about? Like, it's just the dumbest version of that argument.
Look, just because my sergeant got treated like shit when he was in the Marine Corps does not mean he wanted to treat me like shit when I was in the Marine Corps. Like, that's typically, you want a better industry as you advance, right? You want to be that person that somebody comes to when you have a problem. And it looks like, at least in this industry, for what we're talking about right now, we don't have people, or the people like you are not empowered enough in order to stand up for the people that work under your charge. That's what we're talking about.
So what problems are being caused by there being apparently high turnover with Blizzard?
Okay, I can address that right now. So there's people like like the Frogman who calls somebody like me and says, "Can you do this?" And I says, "Absolutely, I can do it." Okay, I can do it. I can have it done by X time. And then they say, and then I said, okay, now I'm going to lay out the thing, and you're going to write out the agreement. Well, I've got the agreement. Now I'm going to put this on Pivotal Tracker for you, because I don't think that I think this is too complicated for you. There's a lot of moving parts in what we're going to do. Okay, you're going to sign off on every single part of this as we come along. And if you don't do, but what they do is they always like try to move the line. They move the goalpost. Oh, we had a great meeting. Can you have this other part done? And then they try to hold you to what the original thing. I says, look, these are the modules that we were going to build. We are this far into the modules. You do not understand the people that you usually call the geniuses up and say, do this, right? We don't care. Can you do it? And we say, yes. Because the first thing we do is oftentimes I know how to do it in my head, how to dream it out and put it out in postcards, how to make step by step, this is how we're going to do it. This is the amount of money I'm going to need. There's no lying involved in this. You will give me this amount of money, this at this milestone and this milestone. Okay. They say yes. So then we're about a third of the way to the milestone, right? And they say, well, we don't know if we have that money anymore. I says, what do you know? What do you mean you don't have that money anymore? Well, then maybe I might have to lay low on a dev, or I don't need this particular part of this thing done right now, but I know that I need it in like six weeks from now. John, I'm going to have to put you on part-time for right now. Just keep working on it. I'll take care of you. We're going to do it. Because what they usually try to do is they try to squeeze what you're trying to do, and then sometimes the thing just fails because they do that.
Let it fail.
Yeah. Okay. Again, you sound like you're talking about every industry where you have clients with deadlines and you're working on projects together. Like, this is not.
Do you understand?
And you didn't answer. And you didn't answer. And you didn't answer my question.
We may not know the answer.
Right? So the question the question that you spoke up to answer for me, right, is what problem is being caused by the apparently high turnover rate for low level
when
developers?
I'm trying to get geniuses, I have to compete with the. Okay.
Oh shit! You have to compete. Oh my god!
I have to compete with people that we say, okay, I'm gonna turn my back on you. I'm going to play chess against 5 of you at once. Can you compete?
You have to compete for contracts. Oh, holy shit!
I just want to be clear,
I'm competing for
just
genius.
because it's happening in every other industry in the entirety of the United States does not necessarily mean that's something that we want our society based around. I want to clear that out.
You haven't demonstrated or even laid out how this is a problem for anybody yet. I've asked you guys repeatedly. What problems is this causing?
Let's see if Meat can solve that, and then we'll go to Omni. And yeah, anyone else wants to go?
So I'm worried that I might not solve exactly that, because I feel like that's not the framing I care about as much. Maybe, or at least not the way I'm thinking about it, I guess. So I just want to say real quick, earlier someone addressed the question of like, well, why is gaming so special as far as unions go? Maybe I'm thinking about this wrong, but just to answer that, I think the thing is that they're not particularly special. Generally speaking, the time that we decide that unions need to matter is when everyone in the game in the industry at play says like, oh, hey, there seems to be these problems that are manifesting at scale. We need to regulate them, form a union. That being said, Doobie, I wanted to ask you. So I just want to know what you would think, what your thoughts would be, how you respond if I could demonstrate to you that there was this population, let's say, of kids that were growing up in our culture, like maybe you and I, perhaps, and many of us here. We grow up, we play video games, we love video games. You know, we spend years playing them. We have friends with, we love them for whatever, it's one of our hobbies, our passions, whatever. What if I could demonstrate that there's this substantial population of kids who are growing up in this culture, becoming adults who are passionate about these things, and they have this massive investment of their lives into video games in ways that they can't easily get from other places, and they're like fighting against that passion to be in the video game industry, and those two railing conflicts with how tough the work is like causing them to kill themselves, grinding the stone against that passion. If I could demonstrate that and wanted to regulate that, like what are your thoughts in response to that? You know what I mean?
I would say
I'm not trying to load it morally, but I think that sort of might be what we're dealing with.
I don't care about the people who would commit suicide, to be honest with you. I think if they're like that devoted to the idea of being a game developer, and they're like grinding away at it for their entire fucking lives, and they can't make it work, they can't get into the industry, they can't get a job, right? Then hey, maybe they should have got another passion. Maybe they should have planned their lives better and gone to school for something else, right? I don't think we can regulate against people without any talent trying to get into an industry that's not suited for them.
What if I could show that we could stop those suicides by making the work environment better?
How?
Would you just not care still?
Wait, hold on. So these are two different things we're
I'm
talking
just
about,
asking.
right?
I'm not.
So this is people. Are these people that are getting into the industry and then they're not able to put up with the working conditions, or are these people that have tried to get into the industry but they can't, so they kill themselves?
Oh, I'm sorry. So in my head, I'm thinking about people who are like have gotten into the industry, but it's so rough, but they're willing to put up with it because they want to be there so badly, but they just keep putting up with it, and eventually they kill themselves because they're not willing to give it up because they want to be there so badly. Does that make sense?
Well,
That's what I'm thinking.
Shit, we got to give them a therapist, and they need to go into another industry if they can handle the hours, right? Or they can leave Blizzard and go start their own indie video game studio and play and make games that nobody plays.
So,
right?
And maybe I'll pass it off after this. I just want to say this, and I'll pass it off. Food for thought, maybe, and maybe I'm just wrong about this, but I feel like one of the things that a union might be able to do is regulate a system where we can get therapists into those environments and help these people, even if that's all they do.
No,
I think you for that, but I think that's an example of something
regulate terrible managers like Doobie. Holy shit!
Wait, don't most of these places have pretty good like healthcare? Like at Blizzard, I'm pretty sure Blizzard has healthcare.
Those lower employees aren't qualified for that.
What lower employees are you talking
No,
about?
no, no, no.
What lower
Doobie.
employees are you talking about?
The contract
here earlier?
employees. The
Yeah,
contract
and
employees
then
don't
somebody
have
said
access to
junior.
that
Someone said
stuff.
junior devs, right? Then you said that you weren't talking about junior devs.
I did not agree about junior
Okay,
devs.
so then what do you mean when you say lower
Kurt,
employees?
what were
Are
you
you talking
trying
about
to
the
say?
janitor? Are you talking
No,
about
there's-
like
Doobie,
the
Doobie,
dry
Doobie,
cleaning
Doobie,
guy?
stop.
Like what do you mean?
Doobie.
Well, can we?
So
No,
contract
wait. What does he
workers-
mean by lower level employees?
So I think you might have missed it, but Zig explained how these teams are usually outfitted, right? And it's like 60 to 70% contract workers, depending on the time frame of the project. Those types of employees don't necessarily get the benefits of the employing contract company. Like Activision hires this contract company to.
Oh,
give
okay.
us
Well then,
some
then the
they're
issue
still getting
they
paid
should shift it
shitloads of
somewhere else
money.
then. Right, exactly. So they need to either within their company make sure that they're providing health care to the people that they're contracting out, or if they're being contracted themselves, set money aside for health insurance. Holy shit! Like it's not that
Who
difficult.
needs to do that?
Either the
contracting
individual,
company,
yeah,
the contracting company, or the individual. So
yeah.
many
I don't
of these
think you can blame
so
Blizzard for
I
that.
work with contract employees. I can talk into this.
Yeah.
So there's many companies that actually have a pool of people that they have their resumes and stuff on file. They actually talk with them on a regular basis. And it's like, hey, I've got a client that needs assistance doing XYZ. The term is 6 months. Do you want to go on this this interview process and whatever? That company could provide this kind of a service to that type of person. That's not typically what happens because contract employees typically make pretty good bank in order to offset the costs. Or the contract employee can do that themselves.
Okay,
I
but
think
but it doesn't seem like that's happening, correct? Because that's what Zig had told us. Zig
No.
had told.
So that's why these base salaries for these junior employees, like we were saying, they make plenty of money because contract employees in this industry make pretty decent money.
They don't work all the time.
But
and
basically,
there's
like
other
we don't really have
problem.
to like focus on the details if we can't even agree on. It would
Well,
be
the details
probably good to
do
improve
come.
society somewhat, and that's like what we're struggling with right now. Doobie's basically saying, "Fuck them, I don't really care," and that's not very productive to like any kind of discussion about what kind of issue do we have, what kind of fixes could we apply, and I don't really see us going anywhere.
That's not really what I'm saying.
We haven't been.
What I'm saying is
pretty much is what
I
you're
just
saying,
thank you, Destiny, for the raid. For the kind raid of 1,675 people. Hello, hi, thanks, Destiny's audience. No need to shout him out. Everyone knows who he is. Anyway, but thank you, Destiny, Stephen Bennell, for being so kind as to share your community with us. Yeah, my name is Prime. We do these panels. We're talking about video game development and talking about how it affects people's mental health. Though right now we're focusing on crunch and whether you are tough enough to be within the business in the first place, right? Some people don't care what happens to you or your physical or mental body after being in the game industry. Anyway, if you enjoy these types of things, right? These types of talks, we have them all the time, 6 nights a week, 6 nights a week. So hit that follow button before you leave. Hit the follow button right now, and so you know I'm going live, right? We do this all the time. Don't you miss out. !social for our social media. We have Twitter. We got where we tweet these things. If you missed out on this conversation, it's because you didn't know about our Twitter. So sign up for our Twitter. Discord, where we're having these talks, right? So if you want to be a part of this conversation, jump into our Discord and you can join in. And YouTube is where you'll find the VODs, right? Like, comment, and subscribe for our VODs there on YouTube. And consider becoming a member and helping us out that way as well. Thank you so much again to Stephen Bonnell for the really, really kind raid. All right, back at it. However, we gotta let some people in. Omni.
All right, so I'm really bad at this like debate stuff on the fly, so I decided to write my shit down. So I have been following the Activision Blizzard story for a while now. I've watched Asmongold and all that, and a lot of different gaming news, so I'm pretty much versed in the sphere. I just wanted to talk about the why it's a problem for the developers and why we should fix it. So some of the big things that have occurred in the industry for Blizzard specifically is that temporary employees, at least, or employees in general, are very highly expendable. They will fire you after they will fire you, and you're very expendable. Ugh. Okay,
they will fire you the day two.
Yeah. One of the big examples of this is in 2019. So there was a huge fiasco where Blizzard they came out and said by corporate that they were making record sales, but they did end up firing around 800 employees, or 10% of their entire workforce. Another thing that I think is really bad and that we need to fix within the industry, the long periods of crunch, it does lead to burnout and demotivation. Now, I know this happens in other industries as well, but since this panel is about talking about games specifically, I just want to go into that. So the mental health of the workers, maybe we should do something to address that. And it does lead to the high turnover rate itself. As for the bad work environment, over the past 2 years, we have seen abuse by the management throughout the last year, and why Blizzard's social capital has gone so far down, and why they did lose a high amount on their stock. It came out that there was a lot of cases of abuse by management. So if anyone's heard of the breast milk fiasco, where someone was going in stealing people's breast milk that they were doing, there was one where they did not provide any adequate facilities for single mothers in the or mothers in the workplace, such as the rooms. They had to find some random office in some place, and the tables were really, really bad. They were caked with milk crust and all that. No one was really cleaning it down. So all of these horrible things. As for temporary workers, they are treated, and the compensation of workers, they do hire, as the other guy was saying before, around 60-70% temporary workers. The amount of pay that they get is around $17 per hour, as I've pulled up by our friend Jessica Gonzalez, that was on the closed panel before. She did tweet out that they had a win in the Better ABK hashtag, that they've increased the minimum hourly wage for temporary employees to about $17 per hour. Now, I don't know about you guys in the States, but that is actually pretty low for anyone entering the industry in Australia, at least.
That's the minimum hourly wage, not what they were getting paid.
Yeah, the minimum hourly wage, yeah.
And also, for us, I'm just saying 25, 30 bucks.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Also, as forms of compensation, they don't really give bonuses. There was a huge scandal, I think, in 2020 around August, where they announced that someone leaked that they were, instead of giving bonuses of money or overtime pay, they were giving honor points. So if you don't know, in World of Warcraft, they have a system called honor points, where you can get gear inside the game, make your character stronger and such. So as a way of instead of monetary compensation to these workers, they gave them honor points instead. So it's hey, you did really good in let's say Fortnite. Here's some 100 V-Bucks for you for all this long hours that you've worked. I think changing that into better compensation for the workers will be good. And finally, temps are treated worse than the hired salaried workers. There have been multiple cases throughout the past 2 years for Blizzard where not even just temps, but QA compared to developers and programmers and coders. where they were treated like very, very poorly in comparison to those guys.
But they accepted the contract, right?
Okay. Does that mean like we shouldn't? Does that mean like anyone who accepts a contract and is treated really, really badly shouldn't be advocating for like better standards?
They shouldn't
Like
accept
maybe
the contract.
Well,
wait, whoa.
I think that
What?
we all
You're
profit
from a
from
very
video games being
privileged.
made. So.
You're coming from a very privileged POV, I think, because if you if I
you were just complaining about like $80,000 a year, and you're saying that other people have a privileged POV. Like, what are you talking about?
Well,
how about instead of going this combative route, we say not all people are like you, who are very like have a lot of fortitude or mental fortitude. A lot of people can't take like this harassment, and it's not.
Thank you.
Yeah, good on you. But like
I
not
started off
like
at
most people, I don't think.
55K. Thank you.
And I'm
not
trying to break into the
privileged by
industry.
any means. I earned to where I got, man.
You also got
Fuck
really
off.
lucky, probably.
I've
Okay,
been in the industry for 13 years.
You also got really lucky, probably.
This is so Turk, just so you're aware. So whenever like untalented people want to pull down just a little bit when they feel like you're above them, they want to pull you down just a little bit for working real hard to get there. They say, "Oh well, you must have got a little lucky too." Right? The reality is, typically when people say that, it's because they're shit at what they do and they're coping with the fact that they can't be where you are. That's all it is. Okay? So don't take that
one
seriously.
person in the channel right now going constant at comments on other people and projecting their
take
own
it seriously.
insecurities on me. I'm not sure.
You're absolutely doing exactly that to Mr. Turk. Okay, Turk, I'm sure you worked very hard. I'm sure you weren't lucky. I'm sure you worked your ass off. Okay, you're a beautiful
I
man.
didn't say he didn't work his ass off. I am perfectly aware that he worked his ass off, but
Yeah, but you just had to
shouldn't
put in the
discount-
little pin. Oh, well, you got lucky too. It's the little pin in there. Okay, we got it.
Okay.
I got lucky too. Yeah.
I don't think
I'm
we should
perfectly
be
aware of that.
insulting. I don't think we
Discuss.
should be insulting someone's
Okay.
like merits that they put in to get somewhere.
Yeah. All right. So move on from this because this is boring me. Let's go. Turk. I hope I didn't miss anyone. And Meat. Oh, and
sorry,
Kamikaze, you had something to ask, so like ask that thing as well, right? You remember? So after we get through these people, Turk, Meat, then you, Kamikaze, okay?
I forgot what I was going to talk about because you got
That's
that
fine, I can
massive
take it if
raid
you
by
want.
Destiny, and I'm surprised you didn't get more subs out of it too. I'm really disappointed in your community, Prime. Come on.
Sub to the channel, help us out. Yeah, help us
Yeah.
out. If you like enjoying this content, sub to the channel, give bits or give subs. But go ahead, buddy.
So I'm just this whole contract stuff, right? Because as a contract employee, I deal with contract people. I work with contract people. They help me do my job, and I try to help them do their job. That's kind of the entire relationship when it goes to contract employees. When we interview them and we offer them a position, they have every opportunity to decline the position due to the rate that they're getting paid or the terms of the type of job that they're going to be going into. So to say that these people that are taking these positions within Blizzard are being handed a bad take, that's not entirely true because they go into the entire process knowing that they're going to be this contract employee, but they accept the terms of the condition as well. So it's like, it's like, yes, I wish they would ask for more money out of their contract positions, but it's you can't shoot the person that's offering you a job because you don't like that they're paying you more than what you agreed to. That seems kind of dishonest.
I have a take on that because it's so there are people that want to be in the NBA, right? There are people that will ride that bench the whole 2 years that they're inside the NBA. Doesn't mean that they won't go to college to be in the NBA. Doesn't mean that they're probably really good at doing their job. And the whole dream in life is that they wanted to be in the NBA. Okay? And for some people, their whole peak would be to, hey, I want to have my little part where I drew this little part in this great game that I was really proud to be part of. So there's more than the compensation that may be part of this. Also, I'm not a loser, and I made it through college, and everybody told me it was stupid to go to school, but I made it all the way through, and this company is dying to pick me up. Now, if I work for this company, I can show that I'm a real coder and I might not have to work for this game industry for a little longer. I might be able to work at a different type of coding job. Because I'm going to tell you, even Discord started as a kind of like a game thing. A lot of the apps that you see on there are from brilliant people who made new stuff based because they were familiar with games. And there's a lot of people I heard straight from porn, okay? They were working porn stuff because they could porn coders. No, that's true. A lot of the good No, seriously. So if you a lot of the innovations that you're seeing on YouTube and all those other things, they originated in porn. And they originated in games.
No one gives a fuck. Right, so what you've just told us is that we should care.
That's why
we should listen to you bitch and whine about people who knowingly made bad business decisions, who got themselves into poor contracts because they were hoping that bad contract would turn into an opportunity for them, and now we're on here bitching about them intentionally knowingly taking these bad contracts. Why the fuck should we care about that?
Basically,
That's so stupid.
We're just disagreeing on a very basic point. Basically, we're saying there are systemic issues in certain industries. And one of those industries most of us tend to care a lot about is video games. And we're saying there are problematic structures there. There's some form of, some level of systemic abuse, like both, for example, the Blizzard drama Omni just brought up. Also,
wait, hold on. So one of the examples I was giving about the Blizzard drama was someone was stealing breast milk. Like, why would you blame the management for some random employees stealing breast milk and they had no idea who was stealing the breast milk? Like, it's not like they said it was okay for these employees to steal breast milk. These people were doing it. They weren't allowed to do it. They did it anyway, and they couldn't catch them. That's what it was. But you're gonna say, "Oh God,
you should probably
yeah, I did read up on it, right? I did read up. Hey, tell me how I'm wrong about the breast milk thing. Was there a policy at Blizzard that said if you stole breast milk from if you stole breast milk from the refrigerator in the employee kitchen or whatever the fuck, you wouldn't get into any trouble? Is that what you're telling me?
What about the sexual harassment combos?
Okay, wait, hold on. No.
Apparently,
no. Okay, so when I was saying that these people weren't allowed to take the breast milk when they did it anyway, and then your response to that was saying, "Oh, well, you should actually read up on this before you talk about it." What you were implying there is that I was wrong when I said they weren't allowed to take the breast milk, but now you agree they weren't allowed to take the fucking breast milk. They were doing it, without any permission. The company didn't allow them to do this, and they just weren't caught. Right, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I did not think breast milk would be a deep part of this conversation when it started. I gotta say.
The intention of the night was breast milk just worthy to steal.
That was just one example of the types of what contributes to the bad work environment. If you want something that is actually a bad thing that's happened in the company and that it's not enforced, there's multiple cases of sexual harassment within Blizzard. And what's happened is, to their female employees. And these female employees, they go complain to HR. HR comes in, and what's happened in these cases is that they're trying to sweep it under the rug. They're saying, you made a big deal out of this. You should write a letter saying you should apologize to the person that was offending, the one who was the victim. So this is these are the more tangible instances that you're.
And then we're gonna go to meet Turk and Kamikaze.
Yeah, I gotta say, maybe again, I'm out of the loop here, but I feel like people stealing shit out of the employee refrigerator is a pretty common problem at all workplaces.
Not breast milk.
Yes. Wait, hold on. Wait, please. Dewey, right? So you said not breast milk, Dewey. So I don't know if you're implying that there's something especially degenerate about the workers at Blizzard where they'd want to take the breast milk. That's us. I don't know how you justify that. It's a little bit weird. Right, but again, you guys are pointing to issues that are found in every industry, right? So lots of industries, lots of companies specifically have issues where sometimes the HR representatives are bad. They don't follow up. They don't go through the process they're supposed to. Right. So to take this fuck up at this one company, and we know these kind of fuck ups happen at the companies all over the fucking planet in every fucking industry, to say that, oh well, hey, there's this fuck up at Blizzard with HR and people stealing out of the employee refrigerator. So that must mean the entire industry is just like degenerate, and people are raping each other in the employee locker room or whatever the fuck. Right. It's just silly. Like, I don't know why you guys are. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
With a big example of the sexual harassment with women there, and then they're trying to cover that up in Riot Games by paying their lawyers off in the class action lawsuit to say, get them like a worse deal. Like, do you want to go into Riot instead?
Okay.
I don't. Okay, go ahead.
I thought we was gonna get more.
I'm sure we'll continue on with this narrative because that seems to be where we're at now. We'll go to me and then Turk and Kamikaze.
Hey, so Doobie, I want to ask you as one of the two villains on this panel right now. JK. But
the final bosses
you seemed in favor.
Putting you on Vivian's list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's the raid boss, right? We're all grouping up trying to take down the Frog King.
Yeah.
No. So Doobie, you seemed in favor of, like, at least in concept, like the idea of like getting these people help that would alleviate these conditions. At least in abstract, you seem to like be in favor of, like with like therapy or something, like get some mental health. And you implied, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said that some companies are already, there are some examples of a lot of companies that are already doing a pretty good job of managing that, right? You did
yeah,
say that,
but
right?
So the reason I'm pointing to like every industry that has similar issues, right, is because I think these are the problem of like being overworked in the United States and in lots of countries and not having the proper access to like mental health services is an issue that everybody deals with in this country. And even sometimes if they have access to it, but it's just there's a stigma involved, so people don't actually go and do it, right? Which is why the suicide rate with like men in this country is so high. Right, you could point to truckers, right, who drive 70 hours a week sometimes, right, and they end up taking pills to stay awake because if they fall asleep, they're going to crash into somebody on the fucking road. Sometimes those guys kill themselves, right? That matters just as much as these game devs killing themselves. So this seems like if that's the issue, it seems like we should be talking about it at a societal level and not hyper focusing on game development and their inability to keep up with deadlines.
I think that we might be able to pull back and talk about it on a societal level, and then from there, I generally agree. I think that there is room to like scope back like that, but then in applied circumstances, scope in on particular instances and find out best solutions. But I don't know if you necessarily disagree with that. So I just want to ask you one more quick question, and then I'll pass it off to everyone again. So would you be open to the idea of, like, for example, a policy that like set guidelines to like ensure that game companies to try to like hold game companies accountable, just in the sense of like, just set some kind of standards to like force them to provide some kind of mental health care for their workers? Would you be open to that?
No, I don't think that I'd want to pass the buck on to private companies that way. I think this should be something that's handled at the federal level, and we should have a publicly available, totally free healthcare for everybody. Right? I wouldn't want to pass it on to private companies. But that being said, I don't.
Okay.
So that being said, I don't think that I wouldn't want any policies in place to like force game development companies to like reduce crunch time. I think that's kind of silly. If they decide that, sure, maybe they could both work, quote unquote. But if them reducing crunch time means my Warhammer 3 comes out 3 months late, right? Then fuck, I don't want it. Right? Fuck that.
What if
stick
like
to
1,000 less people killed themselves as a result?
Well, shit happens sometimes. Lots of people die in the world.
Okay, all right.
They should be happy that they still have the jobs and they're not being pushed to some people in India that do it for half the price.
Let's go to Turk, and then Kamikaze. Turk, Kamikaze, and Casa.
Damn, Doobie, damn, bro.
Turk,
you gotta come out perfect.
I just got back from the bathroom. I didn't raise my hand.
You had your hand up previously. All right, well, it's fine.
Yeah, and I talked about the contract labor stuff.
Okay, Kamikaze and then Casa.
So, as an aside, this is a little bit off track, but what about people who work tech in industry and gaming and they're on call 24/7? Do you see that's the same thing? What are your opinions on that, just in general?
As a salary employee or as a contract worker that's on call?
I mean, both of them technically have this happen, so take your pick.
So as a salary employee, I interface with people in Taiwan, India, China, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, that's part of the job. And it's a requirement. It's been agreed upon myself and my management team. If I was a contract employee, I would go into it knowing that I would need to be available certain times of day to facilitate for this job. And if the shift requirement needed additional compensation or additional job benefits, best word I can come up with, that's at the time of the contract that needs to be agreed upon with the contract holder.
And to add to that, these systems, some of these systems just need to be up 24 hours. Like that's what that's what you're promising to the customer. So somebody needs to be
people in
at
Taiwan
least available.
message me about fan control, and I'm like, dude, it's 10 o'clock my time, but it's 8 o'clock their time. So it's like I have to accommodate for them because that's part of my job.
Yeah, that's just something that's never going away in IT in general. Someone has to be up for that.
Sounds about the same as crunch time, doesn't it?
No,
yeah, but the benefit of being in a product development role is the cycle flows. So it's like, yes, there are times where I need to be available 100% of the time to accommodate for the people so that the progress continues to be made. But that doesn't happen 100% of the time throughout a calendar year. There are times where things are slow and I work 20 hours a week. There's times when I work 80 hours a week. But in the end of the day, I have to fulfill my end of the contract agreement or my salary agreement, and that's just the way the job works.
Yeah, but the thing is that a lot of the people that we're talking about get 3 or 6 months. They're fired. They lose their job for 2 months. They get rehired, and they're in this perpetual cycle for a while, and they have student loans and other things that are in there. Plus, not everybody's been in the military. Not everybody's built like that. And I'll just tell you that the really smart people, there's no free ride with getting high intelligence. Real high intelligence coupled with real stability is kind of rare, right? Really high intelligence and or social skills could be really high intelligence, sane, not very good social skills. Nobody gets the full package. Okay. And sometimes
that's just not true. I don't know what you're saying.
And then when you find that one contract worker, you elevate them to a permanent hire and they become staff.
Well, do you think that it's rarer to find that?
No, we have offered that kind of a position to many people in our organization.
Okay, out of 1,000 people, how many people are like above 130s in intelligence, excellent social skills, and they can handle the hours too? The stable people.
I'm pretty sure high IQ is correlated with high instances of both of those things.
Yeah, I don't care if they have high social skills or high IQs. If they can accomplish the job I need them to do and they do a great job at doing it, they will fulfill the contract and potentially be permanently hired, man.
And that's what you're offering them. That if you'll go through all this pain all the time, we might hire you. We might love you and take you home.
No,
and that's
not part of the contract.
Part of the pull. That's right. It's not part of the contract, but it's what's the expectation in a lot of people in their mind when they get hired onto these lower level jobs.
Let's go. Well, you can answer the next. Would you agree? You can answer that question. And then I want to go to Casa, who's been waiting, and then Rainbow, Bright, whatever.
I married my wife thinking I was going to have sex every day of the week, and that's not the way it actually pans out. So that wasn't part of the contractual agreement between the two parties.
Why didn't you make that
good point about yourself right now?
Agreement. Why didn't you make that part?
Yeah, that's your fault, man. That's on you.
That's like you should have negotiated properly. See, there's an example of bad negotiation.
And you were going to be in charge, right?
It's almost like that same argument could be made towards the other contract employees. So.
Damn, bad negotiation, no deal, no sex.
Oh man, yeah, you got to put that in the prenup.
That's the
solution. All right,
but there's love.
Blue balled contract right there.
Let's go to Casa, who's been waiting very, very patiently.
Who is Casa? Is that me?
Is that? I thought that was you. Case?
Okay. Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Snakes. Whatever.
Casa.
I was like Casa. Yeah. So shit. I totally lost my train of thought.
It was something about Turk's wife and sex. I'm pretty sure that's a
that's where you blanked out.
I get it every day from his wife, so I don't know what he's saying. Okay, so I wanted to talk about why this is important. First of all, burnout, the psychological condition, has long-term symptoms very similar to PTSD. And I agree with Doobie that we can generalize to many industries that have like a large input pipe of potential employees, that therefore that input pipe has very bad negotiating power, and then those employees get exploited by companies, right? We can definitely generalize this problem, but it seems to be very endemic at all of these major companies doing these major releases, right? It's like you hear about all these teams, and as someone who's mostly worked on smallish software development teams, when I hear you have 1,000 developers on a project and they're all on like crunch to finish something, I'm like, how unproductive per developer can you possibly be? Because I feel like a lot of very good games get finished on 20 dev teams. And I feel like that might even be more optimal. It's just to have small teams than to have very large teams, because then you don't get fuckery between like whole departments of people.
You don't.
But yeah, so the main thing I wanted to address was that the mental health issues coming out of the software development industry and many other industries, I agree, do have long-term consequences for some of these people, particularly with burnout, particularly with employment issues, like the gentleman was saying. I forgot your name, sorry. But some of these people are hired on essentially for crunch time and then are unemployed for 3 months. And that's, a drain on state resources and also a drain on their mental health and living conditions.
I'm Dewey, by the way, and I'm also Mueller Bode. I have a channel. We play D&D for people like you, too. Anyway, yeah, that's true. So,
indeed. Okay.
Great.
What we never really covered in either panel or was how this affects people on the consumer side. So something I brought up at the very end of that panel was whether
security holes, your Xbox getting hacked, lots of backdoors incorporated, code theft, engineered fuckery because they're pissed off at somebody. Black walls happen on lots of shit.
I don't think that pushes us.
Yeah, it's not what I was going for. I meant in terms of the excesses of the video game. A video game corporation has been dealing with customers. So when we talk about microtransactions and loot boxes, right? So a lot of people who have gamed in a previous era remember when you didn't have to buy anything to unlock the full game, right? Yeah, you earned it through gameplay, and that was it, right? Yeah, you got the full package, and you were done. Those days are mostly gone, right?
Well, to be honest,
hold on, let me finish my point, please. So those days are mostly gone. We get microtransactions, and there's some benefits to that, right? Like developers can keep like patching a game, right? But and as well as providing additional content. Sometimes there's massive content, like in some RPGs, like whole like new worlds are added afterwards. So there's that. But there's also things like loot boxes. Is it that do you think it's that people are of a certain age and are complaining about these things, but younger generations won't actually care? It's not that big of a deal. Is this just us like being mad that the world is advancing, and shaking our fists at clouds, or is this something deeper? Is like the loot boxes and other financialization tactics, right? Are those things actually dangerous, right? No matter what generation you're in, and like a part of the industry's worse off for it. So I'll start with D because I know D has a terrible take on this, and then we'll go to Yamato after that. Yamato, and then Omni, and yeah, we'll figure it
out. So I love loot boxes. I buy lots of loot boxes, and in my experience, right, it actually helps me keep up with like the no-lifers who are glued to their PC, glued to their seats 24/7 because they don't have jobs, right? Or maybe they do have a job, but they're game devs and they're not working until like the last 2 months of the project, right? Maybe so a lot of times, if the game doesn't have loot boxes, doesn't have a quote unquote pay to win feature where I can buy the gear that I need to keep up with everybody, I fall behind and I don't play the game as much, right? It's sad times. So yeah, I think they're great. If you don't want them, like if you don't like them, don't buy them. Pretty simple. Grind away like everybody else to get the product. But if you have the money for it, right, go for it. I think it's totally fine.
That was one of the weakest baits I've heard.
Yamato and
I think I have a problem with pay to win features because you don't actually like you don't actually I guess you help the company by buying a product, but you don't actually learn the game. You buy the best character, you unlock it, you throw a bunch of money, and then like you beat some dude that didn't put any money into the game. It ruins the game. And people that work hard for the game will try less to play. Like if you look at World of Warcraft, where you could just like buy your levels, right? It completely ruins the experience of the game because you still have to know your character. You have to know everything. And if you go into like a dungeon, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're just going to wait. You're wasting everybody else's time, making the game like harder for everyone else.
Okay. Omni, right?
That's fucked.
Yeah.
Okay. So the points I want to hit are in the game industry now that there's a lot of money into it and there's big corporations into it. What I'm seeing more throughout the news sphere is that they're trying to squeeze as much money as possible. Games aren't designed to be fun as much anymore. It's more designed to keep players playing. It's like more retention. Engagement metrics. So one of the things that they do, this is a term called anchoring. So they're training consumers to be okay with something. Microtransactions is one of them. What are the other ones? We also see it in things like Nintendo. So how they've anchored you in a way where how there's like always 2 different types of Pokemon that comes out. So they've trained us to have that expectation. So if you want to have all the Pokemon in your Pokedex, you need to have like both games. Another thing to the loot box point, one of the things that they do one of the reasons why loot boxes is bad is because companies tailor these in a predatory manner where they hit the gambling psychology. Loot box, you roll, you have a chance to get something, but you have to keep rolling and rolling. We've had some cases where children are being targeted in a predatory manner and they've used their parents' credit card and they've spent like $500 or thousands of dollars on this. People who are weak to this type of thing, and in real world, if you're doing like gambling and they have like a weak psychology to this, they're targeting these people as well and they're like ruining their lives with it. Now I know I think Jibby's at the point where he wants to say that if you shouldn't be buying this if you know you have this, but the main problem with these loot boxes in these game companies is that they're marketing in a way that's very predatory. Pay to win is one of these facets it's like getting some other ways is like they're getting your foot in the door. Okay, you can pay for like this X currency. It's like 50 cents, and then they just keep building up and up and up. It's like, okay, this was 50 cents. Maybe I'll go into $1. It's only like $1. It's only the next one's only like $2. Pay $2. Next thing you know, like a month or 2 months in, you spent like 500. And yeah, I haven't written as far because I thought other people would be making more points. So go to the next person.
Okay. Oh fuck. Who I said was the next person? I guess we'll just go to Dewey. And yeah.
Okay, so are all of us familiar with Skinner box behavior, right? So as a psychologist by Skinner, and that's how slot machines work. You put your coin in randomly, you get your reward. Well, he's right about a lot of the stuff, but it's far worse than that because we need safe spaces for people to get away from that. Now, we're incorporating not only that, but we're starting to incorporate advertising directly into games. We're incorporating they have to pay to win, they have to do all these other things, and really it's just a bad game most of the time. They're just terrible games. Okay, but let's say we can earn our way around it. We can cheat the game by grind, a little bit of grind. Oh, and then we find out this other place. But in the meantime, these people, there used to be a game called Second Life where you could sell your mods to other people. I don't know if you know what. Does anybody remember Second Life?
A while ago. Yeah. And then there were, I know people like we'd sell our 50th level characters and stuff like that. It'd be ha ha ha. Like, but so what it really does is it does ruin the game. And also what happens is that if part of the reward of a game, especially in a community, is that you gain a certain level of respect by being able to play the game and play it well. And so when somebody comes in and buys it, it shows another way. It shows a way of cheating that a lot of people are feeling that it's unfair in real life, and now they're doing it to me in my games too. You'll see like monkeys that they give the monkey a banana and a banana, right? And then they give a smaller piece to the other monkey, and they give big monkey the banana. Pretty soon the monkey starts beating on the wall, and he's very upset. Well, this is supposed to be just a game, and games have rules, and one of the rules is you can't cheat, and this is teaching people how to cheat.
But
so fucking painful. Like, what are you saying?
I wouldn't say
oh my God.
No, I wouldn't say that it incentivizes people to cheat, dude. It's just like allowing them to get.
Okay, I'll tell you what. We're gonna play a game. It's called chess, and I start out with my you start with your normal thing, but I got 8 queens on the board and all my pawns. Let's see who wins.
Okay, but you're not playing chess anymore. You're playing another game. Right, so this would be like complaining, that
example.
No, something comparable. Right, it would be you like reskinning your chess pieces, right? And if you have gold chess pieces, it means you've played the game a lot, and usually only really skilled people have those gold chess pieces. Well, oh shit! Now they've put it away for people that aren't skilled to buy them for 99 cents. Oh god, this is cheating. This is ruining the game. Blah blah blah. It's such nonsense.
Why would you pay for it if it didn't have an intrinsic value?
Maybe they don't have the time to devote to the game like you do, right? But they still want the cool shit. So they pay for it, right? Rather than spending 24/7 grinding away, like because they don't have the fucking time to do it, like most people don't have the time to do these days, right? They'll pay $10, $5 here and there to get this specific thing that they like. Right? And yeah, it's true. Yeah, sometimes kids get their mommy's credit card and they spend lots of money. Sometimes people get addicted. So I don't understand why we'd push off bad parenting, the consequences of bad parenting and poor impulse control onto game companies.
I really want to agree with Doobie for once. It's a once in a lifetime. I actually think that pay-to-win content is making gaming as a whole a lot better. Since pay-to-win allows you to play those games without having lots of time invested into them. And the good part about that is that you're playing those games and everyone else can play other games. That's blissful.
Well, but here's the thing that, Doobie, you're kind of missing when you said the chess example is just them giving skins for them, because the one example you gave was specifically talking about like, hey, I'm going to give money so I can get the gear, that way I can be better at the game.
Yeah, but he was talking about chess, right? So I'm talking about like a Lost Ark, for example, which I've been playing, which I like a lot. Lost Ark is pretty good.
Great game.
Right?
Yeah.
The one thing I don't like about Lost Ark is that, so far as I'm aware, there's no way for me to buy power passes, which like will level my characters up. Then I need to actually beat the game once I get a power pass, which is kind of annoying, kind of stupid, right? But it has they sell lots of other things to make the quality of life a little better. So you need to go a little bit less time, right, to do this shit, so that you can level up with the other shit and keep up with everybody, right? I think that's totally great. I love that. Right? And I'm the kind of person that'll spend $500 on that in a weekend just to level up on my shit. Okay, it's totally fine.
Yeah, that's great. I agree with all that stuff for the most part. The part that I don't understand is when you talk about specifically loot boxes. When a game is saying like, "Hey, here's a thing, and then here's a chance for you to get those things," that's different. Give me the ability to just buy those things. If you want me to spend money more to get a boost, just let me spend the money to get the boost. Don't give me a chance of the boost. That's the ridiculous part, because they're knowing that you're just going to spend more and more than if we just gave you a $20 item. I'm going to spend $5 each time for a chance at that $20 item. Like that's ridiculous. Why do that? That's like that is.
Well, hold on, but it's ridiculous that you would do that if you're like broke, right? So if you're not broke and you're willing to spend you're willing to spend that kind of money right toward this thing, then fucking go for it, right? I don't. Yeah, maybe it's annoying, but you know that it's it's a random chance that you're gonna get this thing. But if you're willing to spend $400, $500 at a time to get that thing, well, hey, that's the choice you make.
True, but you agree that that becomes more exploitative than just giving the item for a set value, right?
No, I don't think so. I think it's part of the fun.
You don't think?
I have a better example.
I think it's part of the fun of loot boxes. When I bought I played ESO for like a weekend or something, right? And I spent like $800 on the loot boxes.
Did you get like max level or
like $900 on the loot boxes that weekend? Like, so it was a lot of fun for me to just buy a bunch of these different loot boxes I had, watch the animation, and hope I got the thing that I wanted. It was part of the fun of playing the game for me.
Sure. Why not offer why not offer like a premium where you like here you can actually get the item, or roll your dice, maybe get it for a lot cheaper.
Yeah, some games can do that, but I think if a game doesn't do that, I don't see that as like a mark against them.
Do we think snakes?
Okay, here's the thing. I took people to Disneyland, believe it or not. It was in Florida, but it's Disney World. So Disneyland, Disney World, okay? Now, when I got there, and I didn't realize this because we were living in Florida, but people should have told me this. So when I got there, I have little kids and my girlfriend, wife here. And then we were getting on the ride, and then we were standing in line for like 20, 30 minutes, and people bought fast passes. And they just went right on by us. And we didn't have fast passes, but it just felt so much like a violation of everything that we were doing.
To be honest, that's like kind of a different situation there, since like the line is a real thing that exists, and giving people privileges to skip this line is like something that actually has some economic
value. It depends on your version of reality.
It's like the equivalent of a dude holding a line for somebody, bro.
I don't know if this is that different. Like you're paying right to accomplish your goal faster. So I don't know what's the difference.
But one of the systems is designed in a certain way.
Yeah, it's designed this way.
Okay, the system just is this way, and you can like make it easier by having someone help you. It's very different to having a game that could be any way you wanted it to be, and devs specifically designing it in a way where you can pay them directly to have progress.
So Vane, when you talk about like pay to convenience or pay to win, these things are both like pay to win, but you have like a spectrum, right? You have like the pay to convenience, and you have like the outright like pay to win. So that's the spectrum. So, but it's still pay to win.
Let's go to Snake.
Doesn't every little boy have the right to have the same Power Ranger go against another?
Let's go to Snakes, and then Omni.
Okay, so to kind of reframe this a little bit, I think I've took some notes here, but I think that the capitalistic system that we sort of live in has sort of two meritorious things that it does. The first thing that it does is it sort of ruthlessly calls ideas that don't work. And the second thing that it does is it exponentially rewards ideas that do work out, usually until they reach some point of stability or like economic equilibrium, right? And so the thing about loot boxes is that loot boxes are kind of fun, but for me, like actual gameplay is usually more fun. But loot boxes exploit a weakness in human psychology, where it's gambling psychology, where you just one more time, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot of studies on this. It's very interesting. But to me, you could take out loot boxes and add more features to your game. And I think that would always be a worthwhile trade-off in terms of game quality. And capitalism is always going to reward ideas like loot boxes that are more exploitive and less artistic, less interesting. So I think that's my core issue.
It goes against some specific groups' game chemistry. So we can show, you can probably predict now through genetics now that, or if somebody has an alcoholic past in their family, that the loot boxes can be more, the games, certain games can be more addictive, and kids with AD&D can have this gap. We all probably have experienced the loss of time, but for some people, this loss of time is way out of proportion. Also, that this time is, this emotional connection to their game is exaggerated.
Yeah, I don't know what. Well, okay, so this is another thing where you guys are like shifting the burden or the responsibility of poor impulse control and poor time management. Like,
well,
I don't understand.
That's not entirely fair. Like, this is literally.
That is fair.
Like, I live in Las Vegas. This is literally gambling psychology. Like, these people cannot physically stop themselves from going to the casino and wasting all their money.
Then
And these
don't
are
get the
people
fucking
less
game.
than-
Get a game without loot boxes. Right? If you know that you can't handle this, right, and you've
I'm
gone
a
broke
parent.
already,
I
don't
know.
get the thing. Don't
You
get the
don't
game
know
with the
until
loot
you
boxes.
try it.
Oh, okay. So if
I don't
you
think
buy a
can,
game with loot
if
boxes
you
and
do
you
me
discover
with like empathy or those concepts,
and you
those
discover
don't work.
right that oh shit, you know, I've spent $500 today and I don't have any more money from rent right now. Well, holy shit, you fucked up. I hope you don't do it
It's
again.
the same as
Right?
alcoholism,
Like,
Like, there's
That's the
alcohol
children as
everywhere
well,
out in the
so
world. It's always tempting you. It's always out there. Especially,
It's so
everybody has a
dumb.
phone. You can always download another one of these games, and so it's so easy to access.
Would you make it illegal for them to sell like a lotto scratcher tickets at gas stations? Because some people are gonna know that there's a chance that if they buy 1,000 of those, they spend all their money on these things, they could be rich the next day. It's just so dumb.
This is direct.
No, I'm not saying we outlaw these
on
games. I
direct
just think they suck.
They don't suck. You just proposed taking the thing that makes these games lots of money out of the game, but also adding more features. Why would a game development company do that? Spend more money to add features, but take out the thing that makes you more money.
That's
doesn't make any sense.
Want to make better games.
Because
lots
it's
of times they use money
neurologically
they get from these
addictive.
amazing loot boxes, right? From people
Thank you for
who
explaining
aren't
capitalism to me. By the way, I
aren't
have no idea
addicts
what
to add more
capitalism
shit to the video games, right? So maybe these games get better because of the loot boxes.
Maybe there's something called
never
moral
happens.
hazard.
Do you think getting someone hooked on
moral
crack
hazard.
and then saying like they just gonna keep paying for it, that's fine as well with that same logic?
I don't think it's comparable to the chemical, like biological addiction that people get to like crack, right? This is
Then
we're
you
talking
should
about.
Yeah, it
talk
is.
to a real
It's
psychologist.
actually,
It literally
it's
is
actually as
comparable.
bad as heroin.
It is comparable in a psychological sense.
It is not comparable. You're not going to convince me or anybody here that the dependency that people get.
Okay,
get
like
on
everybody here but you is convinced
at
of
all
this already. We're already all on board with this because that's what the research
you're all
says.
morons, and I can understand why you think this way. Okay.
Okay.
I don't think any reasonable person would say that the
No one agrees with you right
buy
now,
loot
just so
boxes.
you know.
Well,
I don't care if
no,
lots of
the psychological addiction is very different to the physiological addiction that you get from
thank
heroin.
you. I appreciate you, Mr. Whatever your name is. Okay, it is not the same. It's don't say it's the same.
So
But it is still very serious. Especially with how
Yeah.
young people get involved with video games and all of the modern
Especially-
strategies they use to get you hooked and addicted. Like they take classes in this when they're designing games.
Yeah.
And especially because that it's not regulated in a sense where you can have like G-rated games like FIFA and Fortnite, and they target children as well. Is it like? Would you say the same for children? That you can't.
Where do
be
children
spending
get their
mom's
money?
this much?
Well, hey, then
Like
maybe
mom's
mommy should
credit
watch
card
her
or
credit card a little better. Yeah, maybe she should
Okay,
watch her
no,
credit
okay.
card better.
Maybe
I don't understand why we shift.
It's
why we
100%
shift
fine to be
responsibility.
predatory against people with
No,
this,
it's
right?
not predatory, right? If these kids spend the
It's
money,
not
it's
predatory.
how
To
the money
target
comes-
children specifically to like get
Their
money out.
mother, their parents have not raised their kids well, and these kids are spending their money on video games without asking. Then hey, that sounds like a parenting issue, not a game issue.
Yeah, but mom, listen up. Jimmy down the road, he got his V-Bucks from mom. You know, this is how it works, right? And
Yeah,
and
again, it's
like,
parenting.
and then I can agree with you saying that it's a parenting issue, but it is also like it things that encroach within culture because of the fact that it is loot boxes that encroach within culture if you allow these things, right? So there are things that you don't necessarily want because of the fact that if that gets into your own culture, everybody is gonna have loot boxes at like 12 years old, you know? So, and you can just say like, just don't. But you know that's not how it works. If a whole community is doing, again, crack cocaine, like it's really hard to get the crack cocaine out of the community. Right,
bro.
It's not comparable. It's not comparable in the facts, but it is comparable in the sense that the whole community is doing a certain thing, and therefore it seems to be justified in doing that certain thing.
Okay, again, so if mommy's letting her little kid buy V-Bucks because Timmy's mom let her kid buy V-Bucks, right? I don't think that's an issue at the level of like a crack epidemic in the community is.
Do you remember in the 90s where everybody fucking smoked? Do you remember how everybody looked at smoking in the 90s? Everybody was fucking okay with that. We aren't okay with that right now because we changed that culture. We can adapt and we can improve our culture.
People weren't
This is
as
a real
aware,
thing.
People weren't as aware of the health issue.
They were since the
Doobie, can you just like, Doobie, can you try not to derail the conversation for like 10 minutes?
I'm not derailing anything. I'm responding to exactly.
No, he's not derailing.
Alright, it's fine.
Don't talk. Right, so I don't understand. Again, why? First off, stop comparing this to like drugs. It's not comparable. Secondly,
it is.
Why would we shift
It's
the burden
comparable.
away from these parents who are either choosing to let their kids buy the stuff, or these kids are taking their parents' cards and spending the money without permission because they raised for it?
Because
I already was talking about culture.
And say, hey, games, don't put in loot boxes because I can't raise my kid well. Like that's stupid.
Lots of people are failing to raise their children, and the children are suffering because of it. We need to do something to protect the children.
Point. Do you think there's responsibility on the developer side, or is it only on the parents? Like the developers can like target like anyone as like immorally as they believe or perceive to make them spend the money. Is it only on the parents' fault?
When you're talking about something like loot boxes, I would say it's absolutely on the parents, right? If these kids are getting access to money, but by stealing their mom's credit card, then yeah, I'm gonna put that on the parents. The parents that are
Do you think that we should should we advertise gambling to kids?
That's kind of what loot boxes are, right? It is
Should we advertise?
I mean,
gambling for kids?
Wait. We kind of already fuck that. We kind of already do. When you go ahead and you buy a kid a fucking Pokemon pack and shit, that's actually gambling.
Should we advertise gambling to kids? That's
Oh my god,
gambling.
I don't know what to be said.
Don't worry.
The answer
Don't worry what Dippy said.
You said you are okay with that?
He's muted for 10 minutes. Thank you for
but it was fun with it.
Crime Fridge. No, I mean someone paid for that. Thank you for the 1,000 bits. For Dippy, he'll be back in 10 minutes. But yeah, anyone else? Omni, you wanted to speak? And Rainbow and Casa. Okay.
I just wanted to address Yamato's point about Pokemon cards. So the difference between Pokemon cards and loot boxes in a game, loot boxes don't produce any like tangible benefits compared to like a Pokemon card. If you buy like a Pokemon card pack, you get those physical cards. They are your property now. In like a video game, like they belong to your account, but that account does not belong to you. That account belongs to the company. You get nothing besides like I guess the fun of pulling the slot machine, right? Because they can at any point take away that account from you. You have nothing. Whereas in Pokemon cards, they do have like whatever value that's perceived on the market.
I fail to see how that's relevant to the conversation at all.
Yeah, because the company could still crash the value of Pokemon cards. They could still do something.
And it still belongs to you. Whereas like the accounts on your whatever video game that you pull the loot boxes on, that belongs to that company, and like you could essentially roll for like spend like $500 and have actually zero value out of that compared to Pokemon cards because they can just like take your account away.
There's also the other point: the trading cards are like fairly well regulated in order not to fall under gambling laws. So
yeah, exactly.
But I don't think that's a very productive question for this panel. I think a much more productive question would be like, what kind of classifications can we even like? What kind of clustering can we apply to video games, as in how their monetization works? And I think that's a very like useful point to start this whole talk. I think there's like very different kinds of monetization we put in games, and I think we like earlier we talked about like very different kinds in the same conversation. For example, what Doobie described was like a game that basically offers itself as a service and gives you the option to put in money to expedite your progress. That's like Lost Ark, for example. Great game, love it, and those are the kind of games I happily spend money on. Like that's pretty fun. Like you just put in a little money, shit gets a little bit easier. It's fun, it's cool. I'm perfectly fine with that. But like when people talk about monetization, it's much more often about cases. For example, Magic Arena
which is the Magic card game platform,
MTGA,
which has like all the card packs for like pretty high prices still, but completely owned by them. Like it's just the Pokemon cards without physical ownership thing, which is a fairly interesting case. Then we have games like Riot Games, League of Legends, all those games, which are like entirely cosmetics and mostly loot box based, but don't offer any gameplay benefit or barely any gameplay benefit by putting in money, which is also a fairly interesting category of games to talk about. Currently, like the most widely spread game. And then there's the games that like target whales for the monetization. Games, for example, many of the I think Asian MMOs work like that. Most mobile games work like that, where basically they offer a free game for like 99% of the market and monetize themselves by basically abusing psychological processes or like just lots of disposable money in the remaining 1% of whales. I think those are like the three interesting categories we can talk about here, and I think that would be a good guideline for the discussion if we like focus on those points.
Rainbow, I agree that those and what Doobie was saying with Lost Ark and all that stuff with games that like allow you to bypass some of the problems that you don't have enough time to put in. I agree with those most of the time. The only problem is I think that we see in some games, I want to say the big one that people were talking about just a few years ago was the Assassin's Creed game when they add like EXP boost to bypass and you were blocked by some content until you got to a certain level. So it starts going into the game and how they're being made. They're thinking, well, maybe if we raise the EXP cap, we can make people spend just a little bit extra money after they buy the game so that they can bypass this, like, instead of grinding it out. So the average person, maybe I would have gotten there in 5 hours, but now we're going to make it 20 hours to get there unless you buy a special pass. That's what I think it's been creeping in slowly. And that's what I worry about when we talk about this, like, convenience thing, even though for the most part, it seems to be okay.
The most recent example of that, in fact, is New World, where I think it was like the end of last year, where they reduced the amount of rested experience you can get, and they added onto the store like a pass to get more rested experience. So I think it's being abused by a lot of companies. Well, I don't like saying the word abuse now because recently it's been taking a lot of meaning, but like companies are using this tactic to squeeze as much money out as possible, and I don't think that's a good thing.
Let's go to Snakes, and then Kamikaze, and then Chinchilla.
Yeah, I'm kind of sorry Doobie got muted because I think we were having a pretty interesting conversation.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I agree.
But I guess I agree with Rainbow. Basically, there is I think the problem is that there is a significant quality hit going into a lot of games now. Especially if you look at the free-to-play mobile game space, it's an absolute disaster. It's a complete shit show of games that essentially barely function as games, like a lot of idle games that are like significantly worse quality than like Cookie Clicker. But they have these loot boxes, and you get your progression, and maybe people spend $5 or $10 on them, and then they delete the game. And essentially, I think this is a waste of productive game developer time to make these types of games specifically. So games that exclusively try to funnel you directly to the loot box as quickly as possible. Like they give you a tutorial which has real gameplay, and then you get to the loot box. And so I think there is a significant quality dip. And I think with some potential federal regulation, we could get some of the quality back in our games. I would love to see more games like Lost Ark, for instance.
I think I said fuck. Kamikaze and Chinchilla.
Yeah. So I think the distinction here and the problem I have is I don't understand what the issue is with money providing the game developers free, like Lost Ark. It's a free game. It's not gambling. You get what you get, and if adults buy that or kids, whatever. You're not gambling. But the problem is back in the 1980s, this same damn thing happened where the fast food industry would they learned targeting kids. Remember Ronald McDonald? That's why they were targeting the kids, because kids can convince parents far more than any advertising company can. So that's what they're doing now. A lot of these games, what they do is they'll give you one free, like a legendary item or whatever. And that is literally gambling methodology. And when they do this, what ends up happening is children get, say, once a week, a free login, a free item. This is literally using children to gamble. And children have lower, impulsivity up to level 21. Yeah. So you basically...
And the development thing.
24. Yeah. That's why you can't. That's why military does what they do. So after 24, the British military doesn't really want to take people after that because It's harder to convince them to do stuff, things like that.
But the point is adults, whatever. I don't give a fuck. Adults can gamble. They can do whatever the hell they want. But once you start targeting the children is when it becomes an issue. And these games are rated, a lot of them, for children. So they have microtransactions. There's no way to wall it off. That's the big argument. That's the big argument everybody's been having. Give parents a way to wall it off. And I know you can say, well, the parents are being irresponsible. But are you telling me a kid's never gone to a fast food restaurant and convinced their parent to get something? Or giving you those big guys and say, Daddy, please. I'll tell you, my daughter does it to me, and I'm pretty much a dick. But, same concept.
This is true. I can vouch for that. Go ahead.
Jeez. Jeez, Brian, come on, be nice.
And some parents feel it's a bit irresponsible to not let your kids play games that their friends are playing, because you're kind of socially ostracizing them.
Yeah, that's an issue. That's an issue as well. But I'm kind of with PrimeCayes here. Like in Indonesia, they at some point they targeted like 12-year-olds next to the school to smoke cigarettes and that kind of shit. And that's 5 years ago. So we're talking about that, it kind of feels the same. It's not the same as in the sense that how we experience like the drugs, but overall we have like a spectrum of drugs. We're not going to say like, taking a sugar cube is drugs or something, and then say like this sugar cube compared to cocaine, and that's the same thing.
But it is. You get the same.
Yeah, but we put this on a spectrum, right? So
you're talking about harm, right?
A spectrum of drugs. I'm talking about a spectrum of drugs. But yeah, overall, it's definitely like I enjoy like playing Genshin Impact. So that's like at some point you have the ability to get wishes, and wishes means you basically have the slot machine in front of you, and kids are exposed to that slot machine as well because they're like whatever age, but they can still play the game, and I think that's kind of weird. That being said, I'm not necessarily like, I think it would be better if you just had like valor points like WoW and you could just get that item. That would be better. I'm not quite sure if you should like remove like any gamble or drop rate thing within games, because that doesn't make any sense. And I just overall I struggle with the thing, but if you can exchange it for real life money, I think that's the next step. And then I would say like totally ban that shit, because then you just have a gambling system going on.
They have that in Japan.
Within you. In the Netherlands, in my country, they have that actually. So I'm fully on board with that. Wrong. So Lost Ark is actually illegal here.
Doobie's unmuted. Let's go to Rainbow.
Yeah, good timing, because I wanted to make a point that Doobie was trying to talk about too. But first, for the gambling, I think there's actually a lot of for the kids gambling, there is a lot of like regulatory push around the globe right now, like trying to integrate those loot box systems into our like pre-existing law systems. For example, as of now, like we have, I think in pretty much every single big game, we have like full drop rates for all loot boxes released, and all those kinds of like small pushes in the last couple of years, I think are a very healthy way to approach this, but like not even close to enough. I think that is an issue that should be easy to fix, like just protecting kids from these negative behaviors. Pretty much, it's just both a regulatory and a cultural thing we just have to do, but I think we can do. The other big question that we have with like monetization video games, I think the one more people are actually a lot more passionate about is the fact that like due to the rising cost of games and the rising like budgets, we have more and more encroachments of like these like monetization practices into games that like don't seem like they were designed to, and don't really play like they were designed to, like have those external components coming into them. Earlier we had like this chess example where like one player is playing with more like pieces than the other. I think this doesn't fully capture it, because it's mostly like
I said all the pawns are queens.
I know. I'm just. It's not just a competitive advantage within a game, but I think many people are also having like a big problem with like their game like their experience, their movie basically they bought. They wanted an experience and they like signed up for that. Like having these weird like shoe-ins from the sides. For example, the Assassin's Creed games, which were great games in my opinion, but just felt really icky. Like just the single player game with its like carefully created gameplay loops and its great environments and great stories, just like constantly like nagging me on to like spend money already, and that like feels really alienating in a weird way. Like I really appreciate that those practices like allow video games to like keep getting better and better and better, and I'm truly amazed by what's possible nowadays. But it's just like this very weird like
yeah, but you're just being boomer in that sense. Like honestly, like if you
Am I
look
really
at like the I think if you look at like the WoW subscription model, right? Like you're paying one thing singular like every month. Like a lot of people would like say like that's crazy. I wouldn't like sign up for that, but a lot of people did. Like and you
yeah,
can
but like
have
signing
like
up to a service is very normal, isn't it? Like people are perfectly happy signing up to a
yeah,
service.
but not for a video game at the time, not in 2005 or something. You know that was nuts at that time. So, but yeah, that being said, like you have like involvements in like the gaming industry. That doesn't mean you cannot question these things. Like definitely when it's being targeted at children and that kind of stuff, and like how we engage with things like loot boxes and that kind of shit. So yeah, yeah, I'm sorry, but I think it's a bit boomerish of you to at that thing. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm 30, so maybe I'm the boomer. You know, you're probably younger than me. So yeah.
I mean, the fact that you just said that it felt like alienating to you, like, I don't want to be rude, but it sounds like you are feeling alienated because maybe you don't have the money to spend, and this thing flashing up saying, "Hey, you can spend this $10 to buy this thing," maybe that like hurts your feelings because it's reminding you that you don't have that $10 to buy the thing that you want. Right? I guess that can be alienating in some way, but you just kind of grow up. I don't know.
Like Adobe, that's a to question you, right? How do you play games? Like, do you if you play like Monopoly, right? You just play Monopoly with like 2 or 3 friends, right? And you're about to lose, and then you just drop a stack of $10,000 onto the table, and then everybody agrees that you have won, right? Is that how do you feel around that game then? If does that game feel like justified?
Well, I wouldn't.
And then, like because like for me, the essence of the game overall is being ruined. So it's not necessary that I say that you cannot do that, but I'm saying that the game is just really bad. You can do that.
Yeah, but not all. Okay, but this is why they need to find like a balance, right? Most of them, in my experience, do find a balance, right? It's not like they allow you to buy all the high end top gear right in the store, right? That's why they have loot boxes where hey, there's a chance, but it's a low chance you're gonna get this cool thing, and it's probably as good a chance you're gonna get as if you actually went and did the fucking raid or whatever the fuck, right? So they find a balance, and if they find a balance that works and people spend money to buy the loot boxes and other people still enjoy the time with the game because the game's not being flooded with the highest tier item that everybody's able to buy now, right? So I think it's fine.
And there are some advantages to the style of monetization that we deal with. Things like how it allows you to play the game without having to pay anything, so you can try it out for a bit first. It also allows the game developers to support the game for a much longer time. So it's not like in the old Call of Duty where it's like, okay, the servers are up, and a year later the servers are all dog shit because they're not making any more money out of it, and they're moving on to the next game. So I think it increases the longevity of particularly online games where you need to build up this consistent player base that are coming back every week. And that does introduce some downsides, but I think the upsides are pretty big for particularly online games. Not so much for single player games though.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think it's super important to like differentiate there between like a game that's clearly perceived as a service, games like League of Legends, games like Lost Ark, and games for which I'm really grateful. Like Lost Ark is one of the highest quality ARPGs I've ever played, and it's completely free, and that's amazing. Like it's absolutely amazing what kind of quality of games we have for free nowadays. And I really think that these flexible alternative monetization options that were developed are amazing, and they offer a lot of great growth and also great design space for gaming. I just think it's kind of weird when those techniques then get like swept over to other games that don't even have a need for like long-term support. Like I remember playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey for like a couple hours at launch, and then like dropping it and then coming back and having like I think there were like equipment packs on the launch screen. I could like buy armor sets and ship skins, and I was like, why is it even here? Like I wasn't even mad I couldn't afford it. I could have afforded it. It was just like, why is this here? I have no interest in buying this, and this doesn't look cool. This isn't fun. This is just like wasted time. Like kind of. I'm just kind of unsure
so, like,
where
why
this is
can't you
leading.
just like see it and then be like, oh yeah, I don't want that, and then move on and play the game?
Because it can actually affect how the game's made. They will put that into consideration when they're actually developing how that game is going to play. They're like, okay, well, let me put this because I want to incentivize them to buy that thing. Don't you
So
agree
I
that's
think
gonna happen?
games where that does happen, right, is Lost Ark is a good one, for example, right? I'm sure that when they came up with the times, so they're like timers, right? For example, when you buy a little island thing, or you have your island, and you send your ship off to on like quests or whatever, right? It's like 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever the fuck. I'm sure when they were coming up with those times, they took into account the frustration people would feel waiting for this fucking timer to go away. That and they'd go into the store and spend money to make it go away faster.
Yeah, but,
Right?
but
I'm
to be
sure
in
they
that
took that into
case,
account.
it's the
But
primary monetization for a mostly multiplayer service driven
Yeah,
game, and not a single player experience that like marketed itself as like this curated adventure you're going on, and then just constantly drags you out with those out of game prompts.
Well,
It's
okay,
like
but I feel like what makes
you
sense.
wouldn't want
So can
someone
you
at a
give us an
movie
example
theater
of a game that's like
constantly.
that?
You said
sorry,
Odyssey.
The
Assassin's Creed
curated
Odyssey
single.
was
Assassin's
that.
Creed Odyssey is a
Okay,
prime example.
I played that game for like an hour and I got really bored, so I don't really know what you're talking about.
So isn't that like the whole point then?
Well, no, I didn't get bored because of the loot. I got bored because of story, and I didn't like the
Isn't that the
fighting
point then?
style.
Because it was like they compromised the gameplay experience for the monetary.
To be honest, like
MTX
within
stuff.
1 hour, you wouldn't have experienced much of the story. So
Yeah, I just got bored with the way that moved around.
Doobie, do you have any
and
example of like a
stuff.
single player game you played recently?
I'm playing Total War Warhammer 3 right now. That I guess is technically single player.
yeah, pretty nice game.
Okay, well, if there was like a way where I don't know how you progress in that game, I don't play any. That's like an RTS or some shit, right?
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
Anyways, if there was something stopping you where they're like thinking, okay, well, to progress, let's say that they need to reach level 10, but they're thinking, well, if we raise the cap of EXP that's needed to get to level 10 and we have a little boost in there that they can pay for, that they already paid for to buy the game, maybe that's how they're going to change it because they put that in there for a single player game. You don't think that would be a bad thing?
Yeah, I think that'd be a bad thing. But I think that I would like I guess at that point I would just need to like figure out how much time I want to devote to this game. So when this issue comes up, I'm like, okay, this is gonna take me 40 hours to grind to that level to get this one fucking thing in the story that I want to get, right? Then yeah, I'd probably just play another game. Right, you can move on.
Yeah, but I guess I don't think, at least I don't think Rain is saying this at all, that he thinks that this should be like enforced in like a federal sense or a state sense. It's more of just saying it's really bad that this is what.
I just think it's sad it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just going against saying, hey, we shouldn't support these kind of games. I think people should speak out against it. Like, hey, we don't want it in these kind of things. We don't want it in single player games to begin with.
Wait. Well, I think it's fine in some single player games. For example, the one Assassin's Creed that I have played recently for more than like an hour was Valhalla, I think it was. The most recent one.
Yeah.
And they had I don't think they were loot boxes. I think it was like an XP boost thing that I bought. It was pretty good. And then it had like a bunch of skins that were also pretty good. I spent a lot of money on that shit. And this in a single player game. I think in the past we might have seen the skins or whatever available as like quest items, right? Things you find in the story. But I think it's totally fine for these skins that are like totally like will make your character look like a fucking like Draugr or whatever, right? Like make them look like a banshee, whatever the fuck. Probably not going to come up in the story, but it's cool to have my character looking like a zombie, so I bought it. Right. So
for me, like in World of Warcraft, right? If you have like basically like mounts and like cosmetics and that kind of shit, like we're talking about World of Warcraft, a super ancient game at this point because of the fact that it's all about like getting achievements, getting mounts, and getting like pets and that kind of shit. That's basically the game. That's what's the game about, and having the most best pets and best like mounts, that's World of Warcraft. So if you can go to the WoW shop and just buy some mounts over there, and those mounts look way better than the mounts that you can get in the game overall. It's like they have like their own animations, whereas the in-game mounts don't have the animations, right? At that point, it's like a little bit like defeating to even play that game because of the fact that it's like the best mounts you can buy and the best achievements or something you can achieve with the WoW token, and overall, I think those games are getting ruined by those mechanics. It doesn't mean that I say like we need to get rid of these mechanics overall and we need to make those illegal or something. But I think in some cases, when we're talking about those games, they are being like totally destroyed by those mechanics, like or those like microtransactions. So that's also why I don't play WoW anymore. Yeah.
What do you think about that, Doobie?
Well, I was.
You guys?
No. I wouldn't say I am completely on the opposite side of what he's saying with the whole mount thing, because cosmetics, for the most part, I don't really give a shit about. If a company wants to put out more skins and more content for the game, of course you should be expected to pay for it. I think it's ridiculous to think that it should be available completely for free or anything like that, which I don't think you were saying, but just wanted to make that clear. Again, it only comes down to me when it's going to make a difference for how they're making the game. It becomes really sad and disappointing when a game that was originally being made for a cool experience that you're going to have fun with, you're going to buy it once, and you just have a good time with it, is now being nickeled and dimed in such a way. That's what I mean.
You want?
All right, so I just wanted to go. Oh, did you want to move on?
For your point.
Okay, so I just wanted to get into like the games as a service, so like WoW and all those subscription stuff, and why pay to win and pay for skins is actually bad. So when we talk about like pay to win, pay for skins, the whole point of playing game is, you know, like having fun or getting that sense of accomplishment or fulfillment in games. So these are like the main things that we go for. The reason why pay for skins and wins are bad in especially multiplayer games and these service ones, is that it compromises those experiences and those points for convenience, right? So when he said in the World of Warcraft point, what they're doing now in that regard to like buying mounts off the store is that they're making like all like the shittier mounts, the ones that you can earn in game, and all like the most unique and cool mounts you get on the store, right? So I think it makes it feel bad. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to, right? It feels bad for a person who is in the game, playing the game. They've worked so hard to get this thing, but someone bought something way cooler than it. And like it just defeats the whole purpose of the fulfillment. Like, why did they even play this game? And you can see this in the numbers of World of Warcraft subscriptions and even New World. It's like really like dying.
Sure, but what about the people that?
So we'll have to leave it there. We'll be back on Monday with more content for you, as we always do, right? So come back then, hit that follow button right now if you haven't done so yet. If you've been here, been enjoying this conversation, before you leave, hit that follow button, make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. X, make sure it's social and chat. For our social media, follow us on Twitter. For our tweets, Discord, we have the center of our community, right? We have these conversations and offline conversations. Be a part of that. YouTube is where you find the VODs. In case you missed anything, like, comment, and subscribe. Also, consider becoming a member by hitting that join button on YouTube. Okay, I am going to...